Good morning. I wish to welcome everyone and officially declare the meeting open at 9:04. Sorry for the delay, but we had some technical issues. I'd like to welcome everybody back for the first meeting of 2025 and hope you all had a great break for Christmas. Could I remind everybody that council ordinary meetings are open to the public and are also live streamed to provide access to all community members. Attendees in the gallery may be recorded and this video and audio of the meeting will be available to the public on Council's website. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we stand, the Gulnay people, and acknowledge my respect for their current and emerging elders and those in the dreaming, and thank them for the contributions they have made in building our community. I'd like to welcome Pastor Rob McGarry from the Tully Family Church to conduct the opening prayer. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to 2025. In John 14, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Wherever he went, people flocked to hear him, and thousands of people just came to hear what he had to say, because what he said spoke to their everyday lives. One of the aspects of life he talked about were spiritual laws. Unseen laws that God has established that govern how we interact as people and with him. They're not laws that are put in place by governments, praise God, but are a fact of everyday life. They're like community laws in that breaking them also brings consequences. These are related to things like honesty. If we're dishonest, it'll come back to bite us. Respect. If we show disrespect, it doesn't help us in our life. If we do show respect, well, it's really good for us. Laws of dignity, forgiveness. And as a pastor, I've seen people who have unforgiveness and they just become so bitter because they're breaking spiritual laws of forgiveness. Laws about grace, being gracious to each other, truthful, faithfulness in relationship. And sometimes we break these laws without realising we pay the consequences. And we all know that in integrity, faithfulness, and honesty, they're all good things. And Jesus spoke about these things. When we realise the cost of breaking these laws and abide by them instead of breaking them, it goes well for us and for the community. I'm just reminded so often I go into shops now and they say, please treat people with respect, because they're understanding that respect is actually a spiritual law. And Jesus spoke about these things all the time. Governments are not to blame for all the world's woes, and local government's not to blame for all the community woes. That's probably not told to you very often. But rather society's choice in relation to what paradigms they follow. And I think in many ways as a community we need to stop and think about these things. And what are we doing to ourselves by breaking the spiritual laws that Jesus talked about? May I encourage all of us to take note of these laws so that we will prosper. And as we interact together, if we show each other respect and dignity and forgiveness and graciousness and kindness and compassion, I think we have a good time together. So as we come to pray, let's pray that God really bless this meeting and bless the outcomes. Father, we just thank you for this time, that this council, the hard work that each of them put in. Thank you, Lord, for the sacrifice they make and the criticism they face. Lord, we just pray that you would help them to not take it to heart, but realise that, hey, this is just people and in their imperfections saying things they shouldn't say. And Lord, I pray that this morning there'll be graciousness, peace, honesty, forgiveness. All those things would just be such a characteristic of this meeting. I pray you bless this meeting, that it would go really well, there'll be good outcomes, and there'll be encouragement for each of the councillors. We just pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Rob, for those kind words and have a great day. We now move on. Are there any apologies? No apologies? We'll now go to 1 minute silence for the passing of former Shire Chairman of the Johnson Shire Council, Mr Herb Late OAM. Passed away on the 13th of January 2025, just shy of his 93rd birthday. He was the Johnson Shire Chairman from 1979 to 1985 and whilst in his role officially opened the Innisfail depot on the 2nd of December 1983. Please stand while we acknowledge Mr. Late with a minute's silence. Thank you. Declaration of prescribed conflicts of interest or declarable conflicts of interest. I now invite those present to use this opportunity to make public any prescribed conflicts of interest or declarable conflicts of interest in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and/or comment on other councillors and/or staff interests in accordance with the Act and regulations. Does anybody have any conflicts? No conflicts. Okay, we move on to public question time. So before we start, I'll just read the guidelines. As part of Council's ongoing commitment to accountability and community engagement, a public question time session will be available for each ordinary meeting. So, the public question time will be conducted in accordance with the following guidelines. 1. Up to 15 minutes will be allocated at each ordinary meeting for members of our community to ask questions of Council regarding any matter of Council business. The matter does not need to be on the agenda for that meeting, and should the 15-minute time limit be reached, Council can, by resolution, grant an extension of time or refer the remaining questions to be heard at the following meeting. 2. Public question time is not a public forum for debate, making of public statements or making allegations or derogatory remarks about councillors or council staff, and is not to be used as a substitute for the formal complaint process that Council has in place. All questions and associated background information to be asked at a meeting must be submitted in writing using the public question time form available on Council's website and from the Council office. Should be received by 5 p.m. 5 business days prior to the ordinary meeting. Applications can be lodged via the website or posted to the post box 887 Innisfail or in person at customer service. A maximum of 2 questions may be asked per person at each meeting. Questions can only be submitted by Cassowary Coast Regional Council residents and ratepayers. Questions must be clear and unambiguous and not contain argument on the subject. The chairperson, in consultation with the Chief Executive Officer, may disallow a question which is outside the duties, functions and powers of Council, is defamatory, indecent, abusive, offensive, irrelevant, trivial, objectionable in language or substance, deals with a subject matter already answered, relates to personal matters, relates to a personal matter that is not applicable to the broader community, relates to contractual matters that are in commercial in confidence, relates to advice or matters currently before a court of resolution, relates to matters currently subject to an independent investigation or administrative action, complaint or appeal process, relates to a matter that due to resources and research implications will be better dealt with through the right to information process, relates to the personal affairs or actions of councillors or council staff, is aimed or intended to embarrass councillors or council staff, relates to any other matter which council considers would prejudice council or any person. Advice will be provided to the applicant prior to the meeting on whether the question meets the requirements of these guidelines. That determination is to be made by the meeting chairperson. The applicant must be present at the meeting, either in person or via teleconference, for their question to be heard, and shall follow the direction of the chairperson. That was a bit long-winded, but that's what it is. So, good morning, Ms. Morris. We welcome you here for public question time, and I'll hand over to you to read your questions.
Thank you. Even if the recent Tasmanian court ruling regarding the repayment of public funds for personal legal costs does not legally apply in Queensland, and the Council is not compelled legally to re-examine Resolution 0252 and 0253, do each of the current elected members of the Council and the administration acknowledge an ethical responsibility to ensure that public funds are used exclusively for the benefit of the community and that the resolution should not have been endorsed?
So that's question one.
Question one.
And I will hand over to our CEO for the response.
Look, through you, Chair. Thanks, Ms. Morris, for the question today. Our legislation is founded on 5 local government principles, of which councillors must comply while performing their roles as elective representatives. So these principles are transparent and effective process and decision-making in the public interest, sustainable development and management of assets and infrastructure and delivery of effective services, democratic representation, social inclusion and meaningful community engagement, good governance of and by local government, and ethical and legal behaviour of councillors and local government employees. The Councillor Code of Conduct also provides a set of values that describe the types of conduct councillors should demonstrate to ensure their compliance with the local government principles. These values are: in making decisions in the public interest, councillors will make decisions in open local government meetings, properly inform relevant personnel of all required information, make decisions in accordance with law and policy, and commit to exercising proper diligence, care and attention. 2, to ensure the effective and economical delivery of services, councillors will manage local government resources effectively, efficiently and economically, and foster a culture of excellence in service delivery. In representing and meaningfully engaging with the community, councillors will show respect to all persons, clearly and accurately explain the local government's decisions, and accept and value differences of opinion. And 4, in exercising good governance, councillors are committed to the development of open and transparent process and procedure, keeping clear, concise and accessible records of local government decisions. And 5, to meet the community's expectations for high-level leadership, councillors will be committed to the highest ethical standards while performing their official duties and uphold the system of local government and relevant laws applicable to it. So in 2024, Queensland local government elections were held on the 16th of March 2024 to elect the mayors and councils of the 77 local government areas in Queensland. A local government is required to hold a post-election meeting within 14 days of the conclusion of the quadrennial election. There are a number of matters to be considered at the post-election meeting, including the taking of a declaration of office. So Section 169 of the Local Government Act provides the obligations of councillors before acting in office. These are: 1, a councillor must not act in office until the councillor makes the declaration of office. 2, the declaration of office is a declaration prescribed under a regulation. 3, the Chief Executive Officer is authorised to take the declaration of office. And 4, the Chief Executive Officer must keep a record of the taking of the declaration of office. So the wording of the declaration of office is prescribed by Section 254 of the Local Government Regulations as follows. It says, I declare that I will faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of the office in accordance with the local government principles, which we mentioned earlier, and the Code of Conduct, which I've also referenced today, for councillors under the Local Government Act 2009, to the best of my judgment and ability. I can confirm as Chief Executive Officer that I have taken the declaration of office for all current councillors. Therefore, I can confirm that each of the current elected members have declared to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of the office in accordance with the local government principles, the Code of Conduct for councillors, and under the Local Government Act 2009 to the best of their judgment and ability. Commenting on Resolution 0252 or 0253 from December 27 without a full understanding of the context in which it was made would be misleading and inappropriate. Council resolutions are shaped through the judgment and ability of the councillors of the day. Judging past decisions through a modern lens without considering the nuances of the issue being considered can oversimplify the reality and fail to acknowledge the challenges and limitations faced by decision makers. It would not be appropriate for me, for councillors, to make retrospective judgment on Resolution 0252 or 253 from the 7th of December 2017 without the complexity, perspective and information available at the time.
There's no right of reply, is there? No. Okay.
You can though through another question at next question time if you wish.
Certainly. Question number 2, and as a background to number 2, I actually provided a rewritten policy with recommendations within it. Question number 2 is, how does a decision to allocate public funds for personal legal costs align with the principles of transparency, accountability and good governance? And what steps will or have the council taken to restore public confidence in its financial decisions?
Thank you. And look, through the chair again, thanks for the second question. Resolution 252 was made on the 7th of December 2017, so some time ago. Since this time, 2 Queensland local government elections have taken place to elect the mayor and councillors of the Cassowary Coast Regional Council. This period has also seen a significant shift in the composition of Council's administration. Council's new administration has been appointed based on a combination of experience, leadership qualities and the evolving needs of our organisation and community. This Council and administration undertakes the following activities to ensure decisions align with the principles of transparency, accountability and good governance, whilst maintaining public confidence in its financial decisions. But firstly, Council is required by Section 104 of the Local Government Act 2009 to prepare a system of financial management which must include the following financial planning documents. So under financial planning, we provide a corporate plan that incorporates community engagement, a long-term asset management plan, a long-term financial forecast, an annual budget including revenue statement and an annual operational plan. These are publicly available. Further, the financial accountability documents, we provide general purpose financial statements, asset registers, an annual report, a report on the results of the annual review and the implementation of the annual operational plan. Further to this, the financial policies, Council have an investment policy, a debt policy and a revenue policy. The Chief Executive Officer is also required by Section 2042 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to present a financial report at a meeting of the local government once per month. The financial report must state the progress that has been made in relation to the local government's budget for the period. The purpose of this report is to promote sound financial management and accountability by presenting the Council's financial performance for the year to date versus budget expectations. Section 165 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 states that the local government must prepare a 5-year corporate plan for each period of 5 financial years. It's required to do so in sufficient time to allow a budget and annual operational plan consistent with the corporate plan to be adopted for the first financial year that is covered by the plan. A local government must discharge its responsibilities in a way that's consistent with the 5-year corporate plan. Further, Section 166 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 states a local government's 5-year corporate plan must outline the strategic direction of the local government and state the performance indicators for measuring the local government's progress in achieving its vision for the future of the local government area. Council adopted its plan for the future and integrated corporate plan and operational plan 2025-2030 on the 12th of December 2024. Section 182 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 requires Council to adopt an annual report within 1 month of the audit opinion being signed. The signed audited financial statements for financial year 23-24 are dated the 11th of October 2024. The annual report contains Council's annual financial statements for the 23-24 financial year, together with other reportable information, and provides an overview of Council's operations. This report is available on Council's website or on hard copy at Council's administrative facilities. Section 211 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 provides that the requirement of local government audit committee meetings. The audit committee meeting of a local government must review the following matters: the internal audit plan for the internal audit for the current financial year, the internal audit progress report for the internal audit for the preceding financial and including the recommendations in the report and the actions to which the recommendations relate, a draft of the local government's financial statements for the preceding financial year before the statements are certified and given to the Auditor General under Section 212, the Auditor General's audit report and the Auditor General's observations report about the local government's financial statements for the preceding financial year, and the minutes of these meetings are publicly available through Council's local government meeting agendas and minutes. Section 212 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 provides for the auditing of financial statements by the Auditor General. A local government's general purpose financial statements, current year financial sustainability statement and long-term financial sustainability statement for a financial year must be given to the Auditor General for auditing. The Auditor General will establish with respect to the local government's accounts that requirements prescribed under the Local Government Act 2009 or another act for establishing and keeping the local government's accounts have been complied with in all material respects. The Auditor General will also make comment if the statement presents a true and fair view in compliance with the prescribed accounting standards of the local government's transactions for the financial year and the financial position at the end of the year. Cassowary Coast Regional Council continues to receive unmodified audit opinions. With specific reference to Resolution 252 from 7 December 2017, and I note you've also referenced 253, Council has adopted a provision of legal assistance for employees, councillors and committee members policy. This policy was adopted in February 2019 with a review in 2021 and 2022. The policy is due for review in April 2025. This policy is designed to protect the interests of individual current, former council employees, councillors and non-elected council committee members where they become involved in legal proceedings because of performing their official council roles, functions or duties. The policy provides a framework to determine whether assistance with legal representation costs is justified for the good rule and local government of the Cassowary Coast Regional Council area. This policy provides criteria and circumstances for assessing the appropriateness of expending council funds on legal representation or council employees, councillors and non-elected council committee members. The policy, as I stated, was last reviewed in April 22, and as part of this review, the policy was amended to ensure conformity with the model policy and externally reviewed by King & Company solicitors prior to adoption by Council. In relation to the recent legal outcome you mentioned in Tasmania, I note that Northern Midlands Council do not have a policy similar to Council's provision of legal assistance for employees, councillors and committee members policy in their Council policy manual. The policy provides guidance, and this is Council's policy, for when Council's insurance policy or cover via its membership of LGM will not respond to a claim for indemnity cover of the council representative's legal representation costs. Section 6 of the policy states that the total legal representation cost is expected to be determined by the way of either a cost estimate or a disclosure notice. In this case, where that's less than $50,000, Council in the policy delegates to the CEO the authority to decide an application from a council representative other than the CEO, and to the Mayor the authority to decide an application from the CEO. If the cost estimate or disclosure notice is greater than $50,000, the CEO or Mayor is to make a recommendation to Council to decide the application if the application to amend Council's operating budget. Section 7 provides a specific assessment criteria with 6 major criteria that are to be considered when a decision is to be made under this policy. The criteria are: the legal costs must be for a matter that arises from the performance by the council representative of their council role, function or duties, or be directly connected to the council representative holding their position at council. The relevant actions of the council representative in the matter must have been made in good faith. The application for assistance with legal representation costs is made by council representatives before incurring legal representation costs unless exceptional circumstances apply. The legal costs must be in respect of legal proceedings that have been threatened or commenced against the council representative in their personal name, or which in exceptional circumstances may need to be commenced to properly protect the health and safety, including mental health, or the ability to perform the council roles, functions or duties of the council representative. The legal costs must not relate to a matter that is purely of an individual or private nature, in the sense that to be eligible for legal representation costs assistance, the matter must arise from the performance by the council representative of their council roles, functions or duties, and be directly connected to the council representative holding their position at council. And finally, the criteria state that where consideration is being given to funding legal representation costs for the council representative to commence proceedings, the circumstances about which the application is being sought must be sufficiently significant or exceptional to justify the expenditure of public funds. As stated, Council is due to review this policy in April 2025. The commentary that it is inconceivable that the review has not been conducted earlier does not carry weight due to the fact that neither the CEO, Mayor or Council have considered a request through this policy since March 2023. As part of the April 2022 review of the policy, it was amended to ensure conformity of the model policy and externally reviewed by King & Co solicitors. The infrequent nature of the applications and alignment with the model policy does not justify the resources that would be allocated to undertake more frequent reviews. The assertion that Council should introduce an independent body, independent oversight or external auditor to review applications would provide an unnecessary layer of governance, cost and administration, considering the limited applications and Clause 6B of the policy requiring more complex matters to be referred to Council for decision. Council provides the independent oversight required, and decisions of Council with regard to this policy are considered in open local government meetings. Your background material states that there is no clear protocol for managing perceived or actual conflicts of interest in decision making. With regard to this statement, I would direct you to Councillor's Code of Conduct and the Code of Conduct for Council team members, which are both publicly available on Council's website. These documents clearly detail officers and councillors' responsibilities with regard to conflicts of interest or influencing decision making. Further to this, you have stated that Council must establish a clear process for managing conflicts, requiring independent review and approval for applications involving senior officials. Part 3 of the Local Government Act provides clear direction with regard to this. Complaints about councillor conduct are assessed by the Office of the Independent Assessor, the OIA. The OIA is an independent statutory authority that undertakes the initial assessment of all complaints about councillor conduct in Queensland and works with key stakeholders to enhance the integrity of the local government system. You have stated that the policy lacks robust safeguards against misuse, leaving it open to exploitation. Section 10 of the policy provides for the limitation of legal representation costs, stating that a decision of the CEO or Mayor granting approval of legal representation costs should clearly set out a financial limit. Section 11 of the policy provides the conditions that may be imposed, which may include but are not restricted to setting a financial limit on the payment to be made by Council under this policy, limiting the payment to only those legal representation costs incurred after the approval was granted under this policy, and setting a requirement to enter into a formal agreement, including a security agreement relating to the payment and repayment of the legal representation costs paid for by the Council under this policy. Section 12 clearly details the circumstances where a Council representative whose legal representation costs have been paid by the Council must repay all of those legal representation costs to Council. Further, the policy states that Council reserves the right to take action in court of a competent jurisdiction to recover any monies due and owing to it by a Council representative under this policy. These safeguards ensure that the policy is not open to exploitation. As you have stated, the policy allows funding for defamation claims. This will be a point for consideration by Council during the upcoming April 2025 review. Council's policy is not dissimilar to many Queensland local governments, with Cairns Regional Council, Redlands City Council, Mount Isa City Council and Mackay Regional Council, to name a few, all having similar provisions in their policies. The policy highlights where exceptional circumstances are involved with regard to defamation, and provides 5 conditions to be met. 1. The publication is persistent, would lower or harm the Council representative's personal or professional reputation, hold the Council representative up to ridicule, or lead others to shun and avoid the person, is causing or is likely to cause the Council representative distress in the workplace. 2. A concerns notice under the Defamation Act has been provided by the Council representative at their cost to the publisher of the defamatory material. 3. The Council representative has not refused to accept a reasonable offer to make amends with the publisher under the Defamation Act. 4. The resources of Council have been or are likely to be unreasonably directed towards dealing with the publication. And 5. There is no other reasonable legal cause of action or course available to the person to prevent the ongoing publication. You've made comment that this policy focuses mainly on post-incident process but does not address proactive training or strategies to minimise the legal need for representation. By definition, a policy is a deliberate system of guidelines to guide decisions and achieve real outcomes. Council officers and councillors undertake both mandatory training, onboarding, leadership training, governance refreshers and professional development. An application through this policy has not been received since March 2023 and prior to this, back in December 2021. We've only had two applications for matters that have come through this policy. Where applications are taken to council, the matter is considered against section 254J of the Local Government Regulations 2012, which covers closed meetings. Details around these matters can and have been attained through request for information processes.
Thank you. I believe that adhering to legal advice and policy is the bare minimum that this council should be performing to. However, unfortunately, I do not believe that you've addressed the ethical implications.
Well, thank you for your questions.
So I'll be back.
Yeah, that's okay. No problem.
Like I've stated, we've gone through two local government elections since that decision in 2017 and have seen a significant change in our elected members and administration. So.
I understand that. I from a public point of view, and I've only been in the area for 4 years, so I've only been privy to the information for 4 years. The amount of stuff that is on social media, I think it's fairly obvious that the public has not received the information that they need.
I think, through the Chair, one of the challenges with social media is that it isn't fact-checked, and we're more than happy to provide information, and there is a request for information process if there's additional detail. Like I said, I mean, this policy has been, applications to this policy have happened on 2 occasions since its inception.
Yep.
I'm happy to be open to say one of those was following my commencement with Council in December 2021. So, information around those is either available through our minutes and agendas and or through a request for information.
Yep, aware of all that. As I said and stated, it's the ethical responsibility of the council that people are interested in, not the policies and procedures.
I think
Thank you.
Through the Chair, being only 2 applications, there's not many ethical decisions that have been made around these applications, and it's very hard for a group that weren't there with the information available at the time to retrospectively make a decision on how the council were informed and how they used their own judgment to make that decision back in 2017.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks, guys. We will move on to confirmation of minutes. Minutes of the local government meeting dated 12th of December 2024. Do we have a mover? Councillor Littlemore. Second by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. Do you have any business arising from the previous minutes? Anybody got any business arising? I think I have. Yes, I do. So, my business arising goes back to the smart meters. I just wanted to make mention that there was an issue with the smart meters, which was, which the water team has now assured me has been rectified, and I just wanted to make a note of it because it has been brought to my attention. It has been rectified, and I'd like to thank the residents that brought it to my attention. That's all. We go to receipt of minutes. So first of all, we have the receipt of, just let me get down the page. 2 meetings. One was
Youth Advisory Council.
the advisory.
Youth Advisory Council.
Youth Advisory
28th of
Council.
November. We've also got the Audit Committee meeting on the 27th of November.
Moved by Councillor Chewy. Seconded by Councillor Jessup. Those in favour of, and the other one was, where am I at here? Audit Committee meeting held 27th of November 2024. Here? I don't normally go in there. Sorry, guys. Yep. And the other one was the audit committee meeting held 27th of November 2024.
Okay, so you want to do them en bloc?
No, we'll do them together. So sorry, we'll go back and do that again. So moved by Councillor Baines and seconded by Councillor Jessup. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. Sorry, guys.
Excuse me, through the chair. Yeah, just if I may, through just reading the minutes for the Youth Advisory Committee, I just think it's great that what these young people are involved in, and I hope that they they continue to be a vital part of our business and become involved, and just reading what's important to them, and I reach out that if you in your division have any events or things that that the Youth Advisory Committee might be able to be involved in, please reach out to our officers and to let them know, because reading that, they want to be involved, they want to be a part of our community, they want to know what's going on and be proactive. So please talk to our officers and let them know what things you might have, whether it's your portfolio or your division, but to be inclusive so that these young people do have the opportunity to step up. Thank you.
I've not used it before, so sorry. So I've got further comments to make on that. So when I was reading the minutes, it showed the only people in attendance were officers. Can somebody confirm if that's actually right or not? Nobody can confirm. I would like that to be confirmed because, or are the YAC members were there? If so, how many? Because it doesn't actually show. It just shows who was an apology. And if
through the chair, we'll come back and get some. We'll take that on notice and provide some advice. In the present at the meeting, it does have YAC members,
Yes.
committee members, but
Yep.
it looks like we've only got 2 apologies, which was from Jasmine and Aaron at that time. But we can certainly, moving forward, in Part B attendance record, actually put the individual YAC members in attendance.
Yeah, and if they don't want their names on there, even just the number of attendees would be great. Yeah, because then you could, you'd need to consider, if there was not very many, you need to consider if it's actually worth pursuing, or do we need to change the model, or anyway, that was my question. Thank you. Okay. We will move on to
Did we vote on that?
financial performance report.
So did we vote on that?
Did we vote on that? Did we vote on that? Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We did first, and then did we all vote on it? Yes. Sorry, we're a bit lost. Sorry. Good morning. Mr. Vosky will present.
Good morning, Mayor.
I've lost myself. I've changed over to the packet and I'm lost. Yeah, I'm right. I'm right. All good. Thank you.
Thank you. The Chief Executive Officer is required by Section 204, Section 2 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to present the financial report at a meeting of the local government once a month. The financial report must state the progress that has been made in relation to the local government's budget for the period of the financial year, up to a day as near as practicable to the end of the month before the meeting is held. So, financial performance for the year to date versus budget, expectations as at the 31st of December 24. The budget information in this report reflects those amendments made as part of the Budget Review 1, adopted by Council on 28th of November 24. So far, the highlights are operational revenue year to date is 58.4 million, which is more than budget by 423k. Operational expenditure year to date is 57.1 million, which is under budget by 465k. This results in operational profit for the year to date of 1.35 million, which is better than budget expectations by 889k. Total capital expenditure, including commitments, represents 65% spent of the 93.13 million capital budget. The end of month cash balance is $66.7 million. As you'll see, Council, overall we are tracking well against budget. Just a number of things to highlight. That sort of that you may be interested. Revenue, so this is the part that we are tracking well. Rates and utilities revenues greater than budget by 127,000. This is largely due to additional revenue of 232K from a higher amount of water charges and higher consumption than we had budgeted. This is partially offset by more ratepayers taking up the 5% general rates discount, which we included in our budget expectations. Fees and charges is greater than 143K. This is additional revenue versus budget in transfer stations of 93K and water reticulation of 141K. You'll also note we've got a detailed breakdown of fees and charges as shown in the table below. So previously in our reports, we used to have one sort of type of fees and charges, but we've tried to break down there. As you'll see, you've got a lot more information around the fees and charges breakdown. Interest revenue. So this is an area that Council is doing really well. Interest revenue is greater than budget by 153,000. You'll notice interest on savings and so on investments at the moment are pretty good in the market. So our interest from investments, we are over budget by 52,000, and also we have interest from outstanding rates. You will note that with any outstanding rates, we charge 12.35% interest there. Another area that has been a risk to Council has been our employee expenses. So you will note during the our earlier budget that we applied a 10% attrition rate on our wages, and we were tracking over budget by 441K at the end of last year. We've been able to successfully bring that in. As you'll see, we're only over budget now by 66K. We had the Christmas shutdown period, greatly assisted in bringing back this area in our budget, and at the same time, so we've had sort of holidays and so on, so that's been instrumental. So has the recruitment freeze. So we've had a 3-month recruitment freeze. This freeze will end at the end of this month. That has also been assisted in bringing this back in line. Just some details as well around contract labour, so another area that Council has been interested in. Commercial services overspent by 123Ks in contract labour, and this is partially offset by 92K in underspend in salary wages, and they're continuing to fill their roles with permanent staff moving forward. Infrastructure services, asset maintenance is over budget by 99K in contract labour. This has been really due to backfilling of roles where people have been unable to attend work, have been sick, or we have let vacancies where people have left. Corporate and community, over budget, around 92K, and this has been largely due to the additional staff that we needed to facilitate the amount of calls that we obtained when we transferred to the JJ Richards waste contract. So we had a lot of calls coming in at the time, as you'll recall, and at the same time we needed to do a review of payroll in our waste transfer stations, and this has required overtime staff to be able to do that work. Once that work is all completed and we understand the full extent of the costs, those costs will be transferred to the applicable areas that they belong to. Another point here is around material and services. So we're under budget by 450K on our materials and services. This is in line with the fact that we had a Christmas shutdown and people have been on holidays, so you would also expect that we would be using less material and services when people aren't conducting any work in that space. I'll now turn on to capital and where we're at with capital. We have got a significant capital program, as you are aware, this financial year. We've got 340 projects. It's an extensive amount of projects that we have. 28.4 million of the total 93.13 has been spent. So this represents 31% of the total budget. And when you include commitments, we're tracking at 60.2 million of the $93.13 million capital budget that we adopted. Commitments outstanding. There was also some commitments outstanding. So you've got there's an additional 3.5 million of water main contracts that have not been committed. I just want to raise with you, the team have advised me that they have now been raised as well between that time. Another column that we've added for you in this financial report, and also in terms of transparency with community, is around our borrowings. So we have 3 borrowings in place: the waste fleet loan for around 1.4 million, and 3 years remaining on that; the Stodders Hill landfill for 1.63 million, and the Hyatt Street Reservoir for 2.7 million. Borrowings around 5.8 million. This is very low borrowings for any local council, so we don't borrow a lot to date, as you'll notice, but it is there for you. Risks. I won't labour the point. I think we've already gone through around the 10% attrition rate. It was a risk. It's been greatly reduced. We believe we can bring that in line by the end of the year. We expect some more leave to be taken around Easter when people take leave. And one of the things that we have engaged in and started to doing is to try and ensure that we can get our staff to take leave. We have a lot of staff that have a lot of leave accrued, and it would be in council's best interest to reduce that liability and get our people to take leave. It's also a really good work-life balance that we have taken leave. Opportunities to be discussed as part of BR2. At the moment, the team, we are doing budget review 2. We'll bring back that information to council next month around how we're tracking 6 months in, but there is an opportunity there to discuss some of our fees and charges in there in terms of budget as well. Council, that's this month's financial report.
Shall I read the recommendation?
Yeah. That council receive and note the 24-25 financial report, December 2024.
Moved by Councillor Littlemore, seconded by Councillor Baines. Anybody got any questions or any comments? I do. Has anybody else got any? No? All right, so I'll go back here. And I refer to page 28. Under the corporate and community, the overspend for employment, community engagement area, was that also due to the extra customer service staff, or is there another reason?
That was primarily overtime that we had people working. It was unfortunate that it also fell during the rates period, so we had the double whammy. So we had dealing with rates calls and the transfer of the waste contract at the same time. So we had a significant number of calls, larger than in previous. If you looked at 2023, it was double the same time of that year.
Through the chair, I think also that area, we haven't seen a lot of attrition. We haven't had a significant number of resignations in that area. And that whole team in the corporate and community has been relatively stable, which has an impact there. So where we do implement something like a recruitment freeze, that only delivers an impact where there are vacancies that we're not recruiting. So that area has had a positive thing, but a level of stability over that period as well.
Okay, and we're continually seeing an overspend in employee expenditure. Is there an opportunity to review the way we are recruiting and a more thorough emphasis on the whole of life costing of an employee to cut down continual overspends, or making sure we account for holidays, wage increases and fill in replacements, etc.?
Look, I think through the chair, we could prepare and present a budget that incorporated the salary for every position for the entirety of the year. We obviously go through a fairly detailed process to take out, there's 10 public holidays in the year that we need to take into account. There's 5 weeks for most of our staff of annual leave that they are entitled to, as well as sick leave. So to ensure that we're not putting a budget forward that's requiring council to potentially unnecessarily raise rates, we take into account those factors and remove those out of the salary and wages budget. So we've described a few times this year, we have also now looked and said, look, we have an average 10% attrition rate. You've said the recruitment cycle these days is people are able to provide typically less notice than it takes us to run through a typical recruitment process. So a recruitment process, when we do receive a resignation, we might get 1 week or 2 weeks worth of notice. Through that period, we will potentially review a position description, we'll review the requirement for that role ongoing, we'll consider whether that role can be performed in a different way or by someone else. If we reach the conclusion that that role is required and we actually progress with a recruitment process, that will typically sit in the market from anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity of the role. Applications then are shortlisted by a panel. That can take upwards of a week for the panel to go through anywhere from 5 to 10 applications to sometimes 50 to 60 applications, create that shortlisting. There's then typically an early sort of process of interview where we might use a electronic interview style to try and again further narrow that down, so we're not having officers undertaking 5 to 6 face-to-face or Teams interviews. We can narrow that down to a smaller amount. But again, there's a process and time in that then to coordinate with the applicant and the officers to get an interview in place, to then for the interview panel to make a recommendation for drug and alcohol screening, for pre-employment checks to be undertaken, and then for the individual that's successful to provide a notice period wherever they may be at the time. We're seeing that process push out to 8 to 10 weeks. So effectively, in this year's budget, as we've discussed, we've taken that attrition rate and we've said, well, we understand that we will have attrition. We've looked at the historic attrition and that period where we do have those vacancies due to that attrition. What we've discussed this year, and it's a positive thing, we have seen in our cultural surveys improvement in culture internally at the Cassowary Coast Regional Council, but it does mean that at times that attrition rate has dropped. So we have made an assumption around the attrition. We haven't seen that attrition, but I guess as a positive, we haven't raised rates to cover those salary and wages, but what we have seen is some over expenditure. So coming into the Christmas period, you remember we've implemented both the council have approved a longer period of shutdown, which has meant that officers have taken more annual leave, which has had a positive impact on our salary and wages. And we've also had that recruitment freeze. So the areas that have seen vacancies, or the areas that have seen people maybe retiring or resigning, those positions haven't been filled over the period. I think when we get to January, we'll see further the impact of that. Obviously, people still on leave through January. We've got a number of officers that aren't back until February, and we're still holding that recruitment freeze, and we'll continue to manage that recruitment freeze through January and February. So we'd anticipate that we will likely be under budget as we move and report in January, with then a period there probably leading into Easter where we'll still manage that. But essentially, council has made a decision to adopt a salary and wages budget that makes a number of assumptions around attrition. Some of those assumptions haven't come through, but with some of these management actions, we have managed to bring that back in line now with budget. I mean, $65,000 out of about $15 million worth of salary and wages to date is a fairly minor discrepancy, and we'd anticipate that through January we'll see that normalise even further. So I hope that answers the question.
I ask these questions because, going through everything, this is usually the biggest expense item that we have, and it is a budget risk. So, it's always looking to see if there are other opportunities. And even though we plan for sustainable and responsible growth of our organisation, we also have an obligation to run this council efficiently and at an affordable cost to our ratepayers. So then on the freeze, currently we have a freeze on recruitment. Do you think this could be an opportunity also to review the vacant positions? And I know some of them will be critical roles, but could some of them be carried onto roles that we already have?
Look, that's the part of every time we have a retirement or a resignation, we review those roles to understand whether they can be delivered in a different way, they can be delivered more efficiently, whether the position description is still current.
Current, yeah.
Like you said, during the recruitment freeze, I mean, by freeze, there are still some exceptions. We need to continue to make sure that your waste can be compliantly handled at our waste transfer stations. We need to ensure for the community that when they turn their taps on, they still receive clean, safe drinking water, and we also deal with wastewater through that period. So some of those roles through a business case will continue to be recruited where required, but there is a stringent business case required for any other roles that are deemed by the department or the director to be critical. A number of those business cases have been knocked back and deemed not critical during the freeze, and we have seen some roles, particularly more recently with the good weather that we have had. There's been a couple of a labourer role in our asset maintenance team and a truck driver. We need to be taking advantage of the good weather we've got at the moment and making sure that we are staying on particularly our capital programs, and we mentioned the capital today. We have a significant number of resheets still to do in our unsealed road network, ensure that we have the labour to operate the plant. It's nothing worse than having work to be undertaken and having
And no
plants
one to
sitting
do it.
idle in our depots.
Yeah. And then I got one more capital works program, including commitments. We have 60.2 million of the 93.13 million, with 50% of the year elapsed. So given most of the major projects are included in the commitments, are we looking at a large carryover at the end of the financial year?
I can, through the chair, we are actually working through that process at the moment, Mayor. So we're doing budget review 2 and working on terms of the rollover. We don't believe there's going to be too much carryover, but we'll be able to provide you with that detail in the next meeting of February around that. But at this stage, from what we're having our conversations with our teams out there, they're very comfortable and confident that they can deliver this capital budget. And we'll present that further detail for you in February.
Right, so we've had a mover and a seconder. Anybody else got any comments they want to make? No?
Through the chair, just on the capital, I'd just like to, sing some praises for our project delivery team and those members of our team that are delivering. I think the total expenditure commitment and actual year to date is over $60 million. I think the meeting we had yesterday, it's grown to 71% through January. So I think from a historic point of view, that would be the largest to date capital project ever delivered, and we're looking at 6 months into the year and we're already at that position. So I just want to acknowledge council back in February in 2023 adjusted and allowed council to adjust our structure to put in place that project delivery team, and we are hopeful as we move to the end of this year that we can clearly demonstrate the benefits of doing that by delivering capital projects like this one. Like we've stated, there is some carryover that's just unavoidable. The Mission Beach Revitalisation project, whilst we've put a full commitment out for that project, it's an 18-month construction project, so it is always going to carry over financial years. But as has been stated, our budget review process is about trying to manage, and once we have cash flow for those larger projects, ensure that we can manage that cash flow and put money back into reserve that can be brought out next year where required for some of those larger projects.
Very good. We don't see any, I think this is probably the end of last year and the beginning of this year is probably the biggest projects we've had whilst I've been in council, so I do understand. Yep. Alrighty, so all in favour? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We go and move on to fees and charges.
Yes, we are, and I'm going to have Frances Hudson, who's the Manager Facilities and Leasing, joining me to provide any further subject matter expertise around the areas that we're talking about this morning. The current schedule of fees and charges for 24 and 25 was adopted by Council at its local government meeting on the 23rd of May 2024, with effect from the 1st of July 24. As the year has progressed, council officers have identified minor changes required to several fees and charges in the current schedule, which we'll go through. Most of those are around the Shire Hall and what we charge for hire, and the other piece is around cemeteries. So the ATO advised us in December 24, so last month, that there will be no GST moving forward on burial rights. This needs to be implemented from the 4th of March 25. So we've got a very short period of time to implement this particular direction from the ATO. And as part of that recommendation on this specific area, council officers are advising that we hold that fee the same, although we are no longer required to pay the GST moving forward. But we can have a conversation about that. Francis, if you want to go through the Town Hall Shire.
So there is a number of fees that we've recommended, and this has come from activities that have happened over the past year, and we've recognised we need to put some things in place and that. So we're looking at the auditorium seating. It is a specialised piece of equipment that we need to bring out. The railings need to go on, we need to check them, and they need to be cleaned every time. So that takes about an hour and a half. So we've based the fee, that's for just putting up, and about an hour to pull down. So we've based that fee on the actual time that it takes an officer to do that. So we're trying to do that. It is not used all the time, but it's just for those occasions that it is used. We need to put that in place because it is wear and tear on that equipment as well. So we've introduced that, and that fee of $151.25 includes a GST, and again, as I said, it's based on that labour cost that we need to do that. The temporary event pedestrian traffic controls adjustments. So this is where we have to have actually an authorised person who deals with traffic control to change and put barriers up, change parking signs and put barriers up to manage pedestrians and traffic in that area. It is requested through traffic management plans or through the police often. And again, it's something we need to do. It doesn't take too long, but we still need to recognise that as a cost, particularly when it happens after hours, and we need to manage that. Most of what we've seen is during our business hours or in the timeframes where our officers do work, so we can include it in that. So we're just trying to recognise that these are costs to council that have often historically been just assumed within our everyday business, but we actually have to set aside particular officers to do those things. The pre-booked post-hire cleaning, we have some events and some action or events that have come and booked the auditorium where they are not local and they need to move through very quickly, so they actually don't have time to do that post-cleaning. So we're trying to make that as an offering at a cost, because it does take us to organise it and that, so that they don't have to do it, but we know that it's cleaned properly and professionally on that space. So those are the key three changes that we're making. And why we're bringing now is just to make sure that we're introducing them for any events that are coming up, so we can pre-change our booking forms and all those sorts of things as well.
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair, not necessarily about finances, but you talk about officers that do the seating. Is it a specialised skill to do that seating? Do we have is there staff available when it needs to be done and undone potentially?
We have to actually book in an officer, and we take them out of their normal program and put them into that. So it's not hard to learn, but it does take time and it does take a bit of effort, because you have to move the railings, the disability railings into place, lock them all in, clean the chairs down, put them back up.
Thank you, Chair. So, Ms Hudson, I understand there's all these costs involved. We must cover these costs, but I would suggest that not-for-profits or community groups would also have the ability, if they're booking these things in early, they could go through the grants process.
Absolutely.
And these sort of costs would be considered in the quoting of their grants applications. And
definitely eligible for grant applications. So we've spoken with our manager for community services and engagement. That is definitely eligible for those events. Mm-hmm. And also we know for the actual hire of the fees, there is the overall where they can, not-for-profits, mm-hmm. can have a reduction in that fee.
Thank you, Ms Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. A technical question. In the new schedule of fees, when I look at the fee ex GST and then the GST, I my calculation, 10% doesn't agree with that 10%. So $134, well, an easier one is $48.95, and then the GST is $6.05.
So where are we looking?
I think we're looking at here.
Looking at temporary bollard
Okay.
installation.
Did you-
44 of the
Yep.
agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've been,
we're required to round up in our finance side of it.
yeah.
The GST on, if it was a $55 charge, the
Yeah,
GST would be $5.
$5.
But the GST is stated at $6.05 and the
So-
fee is less.
So we need to change the fee, sorry. So the total is what we are looking at. I apologise, I may have made a mistake in that. So you just have to work back.
Includes,
Revisited and corrected.
Yeah, so we can do that as part of the forms. It's the fee including the GST is what we're looking at.
so you're just.
Through the
wanna make
chair, for
harder-
clarity, the tiered seating would be 151.25 including GST, but we'll make an
Including
amendment
GST.
to make sure the GST. And again, for clarity, for councillors, if you're voting today, the temporary event pedestrian bollard would be $55 including GST for
Yep.
setup and pack down,
Yes,
and 110 including GST for setup and pack down after normal business hours, and then the Shire Hall, whichever is the greater actual cost plus 10% or actual cost plus 55 including GST.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Councillor Littlemore moved. Councillor Jessup.
Yes, through the chair, I'm just going to bring up with the removal of the GST from the grave lots and like cemetery reservations.
We haven't seconded it yet, just give us a, so you've moved it. Do we have a seconder of the? Second it, okay, and we can go over to discussion.
Okay, so yeah, what actually happens to that component, that tax component, if it stays at the same fee of 1,510?
I'm just a little confused because I thought we were still doing the Shire Hall.
It's all one.
It's all the same
it's all
part
right.
of this.
Yes, I know, but we haven't. So we're opening up the floor now for discussions about the cemeteries. We've put to bed the other one, is that correct? The Shire Hall is complete. Okay, I'm
Sorry,
just
through,
confused.
through the chair, the entire the recommendation includes both the cemeteries
Okay,
and
all
the
of
Shire
it.
Hall.
Okay. I
So you've got a mover and a
misunderstood,
seconder for
apologies that.
the recommendation, which is on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank,
Sorry, Councillor Jessica, I was just confused.
thank you, Councillor Jessup. I'm assuming the question you're asking is what are we doing with that component?
Yes.
So at the moment, that component will be retained by council as additional revenue, pending our conversation and discussion and determination of future fees and charges as part of the budget process that we begin. We'll probably be beginning that conversation in about March, April, about what we start charging in terms of burial rights moving forward from 1st of July 25. So in the interim period, because we're not required to pay GST and we're recommending to hold the cost to any future burials between now and July 1, we would retain it as some additional revenue. I would like to highlight that the advice that I've been given by the team is that this is not a profit-making business for council, that we actually, do incur significant costs that aren't necessarily at the charge rate, but we are happy to do that. We'll be doing that homework moving forward as part of our determination of future fees and charges.
I think through the chair, for clarity, the charge isn't changing. So for those individuals that have actually purchased a lawn grass site 3 months ago, the charge hasn't changed, and we're not proposing in the recommendation to change that charge. So there's no increase in charge to individuals in the community. Effectively, that GST that we would have claimed back is through those accounting standards now not to be charged through this. So nil impact on individuals. A number of individuals may pay this charge through a provider and through someone like Blacks if they were to provide that service. And I think if we look at our current revenue and fees and charges, I think the budget for fees and charges is about $420,000 for cemeteries. We're 6 months through the year, and in the report today, that's tracking around $180,000. So obviously the budget is built on historical data and assumptions made around the number of burials that we will see in our cemeteries across the region, but we are currently tracking behind budget in that space as well.
I think it's also important to note that for those prepaid burial rights, we've already paid the GST, so we're not held that. That's already had to have been paid out to the tax office.
Yeah, I understand it now, but I was quite confused why the user pays side of it weren't getting that GST relief as a consumer. Someone that's burying their loved one can look at this and say, why aren't I getting the relief of the GST?
So our recommendation is, given the timeframes to implement as of the 4th of March, the determination was made last month that given that we would need to have further, I think it would be good to have further costs detailed and understanding what that is. But in the meanwhile, it would be the easiest, I suppose, and the most transparent, cleanest option would be to hold that until we make that determination in the new fees and charges.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Littlemore.
So I'm correct in thinking that the previously charged GST was correctly charged, and from the 1st of March, is it?
4th of March.
4th of March, we are no longer legally allowed to charge the GST. In fact, it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
we've been doing the right thing, and this is still doing the right thing.
Yeah, and the ATO has left it open to councils. They've actually explicitly said it's up to councils whether they reduce by the GST or hold as their the price as they have at the moment. That's a matter for council to decide. But obviously, this is something that council has got moving forward. We would be reviewing, like everything, all fees and charges. We will start that review process in March, April for the next financial year.
Through the chair, I think too has been communicated. Some fees and charges are very clearly just cost recovery. So we have a number of fees and charges where it's clear to see the costs, so the time it takes to undertake the activity and the cost of the officers to do it. Where you have a lawn grave site, effectively you purchase that site for the one-off cost that is in the fee and charge, and then council maintain that site and around that site for 100 years, eternity effectively. So those fees and charges that we're looking at today, it's not as clear as what is cost recovery, and as we've stated, running a cemetery is not a business that you would get in privately.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess that we're just being mindful that we're not looked upon as making money out of somebody burying their loved one, I guess is more probably to the point. But as you've stated, that it's not really even cost recovering at the present time.
Through the chair, we supplement the operational costs to maintain our cemeteries with general rates.
Thank you very much. I just wanted some clarification because I know there would be people saying, well, why aren't I getting this GST component taken off? So I think you've answered my question and I understand it fully now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
All good with that? We've moved and seconded. All in favour of the fees and charges? Very good. Moved. Carried.
Thank you.
I welcome aboard for Cassowary Coast Local Area Biosecurity Plan 2025 to 2029, and this will be presented by Mr. Sides and Mr. Ward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Councillors. Myself and just the board were presenting to Council the Cassowary Coast Local Area Biosecurity Plan. Just acknowledge that Mr. Anderson, the Manager Natural Environment and Sustainability, is on personal leave at the moment and presenting on his behalf there. Okay, thank you, Lisa. So just a bit of a background. Invasive species have profound impacts on our ecosystem function. They reduce biodiversity, they decrease productivity for our agricultural industries and profitability. They threaten our human and animal health and a much cherished way of life. So managing invasive species is a priority for Council, and having a biosecurity plan for our local government area is a requirement of the Biosecurity Act 2014, which came into effect with the regulations in 2016. So Council is legally obliged to prepare a biosecurity plan for our local government area. As attached, the Cassowary Coast Local Area Biosecurity Plan 25 to 29, the plan, has been developed by Mr Ward here, and the associated surveillance, prevention and control program documentation provides the framework for management of priority invasive plants and animals in a local government area.
Thanks, Damon. Collaboration has been key in the preparation of this biosecurity plan. It's been developed in collaboration with various sectors, including traditional owners, not-for-profit community groups, various government organisations and industry representatives involved in invasive species management. And I'd like to acknowledge their assistance in getting to where we are. Collectively, this group of stakeholders forms the Cassowary Coast Regional Council Natural Assets Management Advisory Committee, otherwise known as CCRC, NEMAC, or just NEMAC. So the role of NEMAC plays regarding biosecurity is to assist with the development, monitoring and review of the biosecurity plan, to prioritise weeds and pest animals and develop specific obligations tailored to ensure pests are being managed to a standard that is expected by the community, and to ensure all stakeholders formally acknowledge and implement their roles and responsibilities in relation to the plan. Importantly, this plan is intended to foster a coordinated and cooperative approach to bring everyone together to manage invasive pests as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And while cooperation goes a long way to achieving the goal of pest management across our region and is a preferred approach by all government agencies, including Council, there is sometimes the need for intervention, which can include compliance action and the enforcement of laws. I mentioned the prioritisation of pest, weeds and animals. I'll just go into that in a bit of detail, as the action plans are the core of the biosecurity plan. So a process was undertaken by experts and members of NEMAC, weighing up factors such as pest numbers and distribution, spread potential, economic, social and environmental impacts and feasibility of control. This process took place on the 11th of July, and following this, 18 plant species and 3 animal species were prioritised for control and management strategies, at least for the duration of this plan. Of those 21 priority pest species, 20 plans were developed. The one missing is the Indian myna, due to a lack of firm data on distribution. These action plans detail specific requirements and strategies for management, in addition to what legal obligations are required of all people under the General Biosecurity Obligation, as set out in the Biosecurity Act 2014. The action plans outline management objectives based on established principles of pest management and are designed to assist all stakeholders to understand the biology and distribution of priority pest plants and animals, to implement appropriate actions at the most appropriate time to have the greatest impact, and to plan and coordinate pest management activities with neighbouring properties. Again, to get to where we are today, there's been considerable consultation undertaken, including with councillors and the executive leadership team, a range of regional organisations, members of NEMAC, both formally through meetings and informally through communications, and the general community through biosecurity roadshows and through social media, website, where feedback has been invited from the community.
So just to close that together, that Rowan touched on the fact that everyone in our region, every land manager, landowner, has a general biosecurity obligation under the Biosecurity Act to manage declared species on their property. This includes council and all the other estate managers, so national parks, primary producers and urban and residential landholders. So this does have a legal enforceable background to the plan. So the action plans as developed outline the actions that are the obligation of the landholders as such, and Authorised officers do have powers of entry and powers of notice using what's called a plant animal surveillance program. So that's to survey, to detect declared weeds on property, and also a prevention and control program, which does allow council and other agencies the ability to enter and clear as such. So it's also mirrored in our local laws. Community environmental management, there's also powers there for certain weeds, similar to similar process, but they do run parallel. So the legal implications there is that it is a legislative tool, and it works together, as I said, with community environmental management. The risks running of council not maintaining a current biosecurity plan, as it is a requirement under an Act, is we can be enforced, I guess, by the state to develop and manage a biosecurity plan. But aside from that, it can have profound impacts on our ecosystem function, community values, so access to waterways, drainage, impacts on environment and productivity and profitability. So not only is it a legal document, it's also a guiding document on how we manage our landscape across the region. So I must back to Rowan for the recommendation.
Okay, so today we're asking that Council firstly adopt the Cassowary Coast Local Area Biosecurity Plan 2025 to 2029 and utilise this plan and associated surveillance, prevention and control programs, documentation to prioritise and manage invasive pests as effectively and efficiently as possible across our region.
Thank you.
Councillor Baines?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to commend the team on the presentation of this biosecurity plan that's running for 25 through to 29. Mr. Sides has already mentioned that it's a requirement and it's a legislative piece, but I think Mr. Ward spoke to as well the partnerships involved. Every landholder within our region has a biosecurity obligation that they must uphold. We have biosecurity obligations that we must uphold. I'm not going to step to some of the cost shifting that's happened over governments over the past couple of terms that I've been in council, but it's a topic that's spoken about a lot. But the working together with community, and just understand this is not just a legislative tool. We haven't built a big stick that we're going to turn up at everyone's place and start bashing them with a legislative tool. It's something we need to have, and I would encourage all landholders within our region to consider having their own biosecurity plans to help work with us and help us work in the spaces of some of the really significant pests. Feral pigs come to mind straight away. We're heading down to March to the next national conference, and it's how do we work together to get us into those spaces. So I just wanted to commend the team. It's a great piece of work. One further comment, with your indulgence, if I may. It's great, it's wonderful to see the comment that's been included around the dingoes. Dingoes are a significant native animal that can have issues in regards to some land management. We're discussing in here the identification of dingoes as a significant native animal. We're not saying that wild dogs and or feral dogs are not also a problem, because they're in one of the addendums at the back. They're listed in there. So we're not saying we're not going to do anything about dingoes. I think it's the recognition of a national program at the moment to identify dingoes as a significant native animal and how can they be managed, not always necessarily in a fatal manner. Can they be done in conjunction with the local people? So with those comments, I'm not going to talk about African tulip today. We don't have the time. So, so thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the motion to remove the recommendation. To move the recommendation.
Councillor McLeod?
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, I want to commend the officers on this actual biosecurity plan. There's 110 pages. I'm a very visual person, and it's not too wordy. They're simple, 2 pages on one. It shows you what it actually looks like, what the management is. It's got pictures. If anybody hasn't actually looked at it, it is an actual really good document for those who aren't interested in a 20-hour read. It is brilliant. Just saying, it is probably one of the better documents
biosecurity, which isn't a really pretty subject, but we need it. Congratulations to you for this very well, easy, for any Joe Blow to read this document. Congratulations, and I'll second it.
Through the chair, sorry. I'd just like to acknowledge that F&Q Rock played a big part in the production of those maps and the calendars. It's been a group effort, and thank you.
And given that your comment, Mr. Baines, on cost shifting, and this is something that we now have to do we see line of sight to making some sort of application for grants or whatever to assist with the costs that are now put back onto local councils or is that something I should be pursuing? Yeah.
Directly to you, Madam Chair,
sure.
I think we all should be pursuing this sort of lobbying and this sort of effort within both of our levels of government and how we work, because the partnerships are strong and we need to strengthen the partnerships with the state and with the federal governments, and they can't just expect that they throw the organisations I'll speak about Queensland specifically, with 80% of the assets and we get 3% of the tax. So, so we do need assistance in this space, and I think it's an excellent opportunity. But having a document of this quality gives us that ability to assist in the lobbying and the discussing with the other state organisations. And Mr. Ward also mentioned that we do the work with F&Q Rock. So that's the 13. F&Q Rock has its own NAMAC, which I have the pleasure of attending, and that's about us all working together and all talking about the very similar issues. And cost shifting is regularly brought up.
So during those delegations, that may be something that we need to put on our list.
I'd
Thank
say
you.
100%.
All right, and thanks again for wonderful document. All those in favour? Moved, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we just stop for a break, please?
You read my mind.
Thank you. Welcome back. Before we move on, I've got Councillor Chewy wanting to...
Thank you. Yes, if I may, through the chair, just following on from the yak conversation, I did reach out to our officers in the break. 11 of the 15 members were in attendance.
Okay, very good.
Some of the members are at school, so their names are not listed publicly, but in future, the number of members, not necessarily names, but
Yes.
numbers will be included in the report.
Oh, thank you so
Okay.
much for clarifying that.
Thank
That'll
you.
be great. Okay, so we go to 4.4, Operational Plan 24-25 Quarterly Review, and Mr. Gruffin will present.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, look, this report talks to the fact that Council adopted its 24-25 operational plan on the 26th of June 2024. The operational plan outlines the activities undertaken during the 24-25 financial year which contribute to the achievement of strategies outlined in Council's corporate plan. This is the second quarterly review of the 24-25 operational plan, which is attached to the report today. As you can see, initiatives there are tracked either as a green dot on track, a amber dot monitor, a red dot off track, or those that have been achieved with a blue dot. There is a dashboard there that demonstrates 81% of activities and initiatives are on track. We've highlighted 5% that we're currently monitoring and 14% have already been achieved. There's no activities or initiatives in this report which we are recording as at risk. I'll run through and maybe just touch on those that have been completed in the last quarter and those that we are looking at and monitoring based on progress year to date. So I will go into Community Our People, and initiative number 1 is development and adoption of the Corporate Plan 25-23, and please say the Integrated Corporate and Operating Plan 25 to 2030 was adopted at the LGM on the 12th of December 2024. I'll go down to number 5, deliver doing business with council sessions. So 4 doing business with council sessions have been delivered across the region in July and August 2024. Additional online sessions will commence in Q3 and Q4. So we keep moving through the report. Initiative 15, Council adopts and delivers implementation plan with ongoing reporting to community through Council's governance, performance and advocacy framework. So the outcomes have been incorporated in the 5-year corporate plan and provide to community as part of the communications for the release of the corporate plan in 2025 in December 2025. So that market community scorecard from 20 to 24, you'll recall we had over 2,300 individuals take part in that survey. That information has not only influenced and guided the development of the corporate plan, but that is now available for the community to look at in its entirety. We'll keep moving down. That takes us into Economy, Our Future. We have had the establishment of the 2 registered pre-qualified supply arrangements for plant and truck hire and trades and services as Initiative 28. I'll continue to move down into infrastructure. We had Initiative 35, approval and contract award for DRFA Cat B works associated with the event. So the main packages have been approved by disaster recovery funding arrangements and awarded to contracts. So that work is still progressing across the region. I don't have a current percentage. Last I saw we're over 41% through that DRFA work and progressing through the approvals for some of the land slips that Council saw across the region as well. I'll keep moving down. Number 47, Initiative 47, practical completion of the Calendar Park North Innisfail Drainage Catchment Stormwater Renewal Works. Well, the stormwater renewal works are completed and the culvert has been returned to service. So we thank the residents for their patience while those critical works were undertaken. The works were timed and programmed for what is historically the driest time in the year, and there are still some works happening as far as the reinstatement of tennis courts and the road and footpath infrastructure that will go back in following those works. I'll keep moving through, focusing on Q2. We have got Initiative 59, which was facilitate the development of a natural environment and sustainability strategy framework that was planned for Q4. Officers have managed to complete that initiative and it was adopted at the local government meeting in November 2024. 61 and 62 we're indicating are to be monitored. So 61 is offset opportunities identified and developed for council consideration of funding and implementation. So we have identified 2 sites in the northern region and established one site being established for Cassowary credits and the other one for carbon farming opportunities. So we did take that to a council information session in January, and some of that work has commenced on the Cassowary trial site yesterday with some of the initial assessments. So quite an exciting opportunity, not just for council but for the region, for that to be, I guess, the first trial site for Cassowary credits in Far North Queensland. 62 is to facilitate the review of the Cassowary Coast Local Area Biosecurity Plan 25-29, was planned for Q2. Obviously, Council, prior to this report, have just adopted the 25-29 Local Area Biosecurity Plan, so that will be a blue tick at the next report. 64, facilitate implementation of an effective feral pig control program in response to the significant threat. So this is about seek industry contribution for a coordinated approach to feral pig control through the Cassowary Coast Feral Pig Executive Oversight Committee. Pleased to say Council have appointed a feral pig coordinator, and the Executive Committee are aware of that. There's a range of actions being progressed by that officer. Terrain NRM funding opportunity has been discussed. Council are working with industry at the moment. There's $35,000 contribution from industry for an aerial shooting program that will commence soon that Council will coordinate. But we still anticipate that the benefit of having a dedicated feral pig coordinator will be seen by industry, and we might seek the Mayor's support to send some letters to industry to seek some further financial support for that role as we move forward. Review of Council's Reef Guardian Action Plan completed for consideration by Council. The review is currently underway. That will be workshopped with Council, a plan to be workshopped in March and taken to the LGM in April. So officers allocated resources to both getting the biosecurity plan and the natural environment sustainability framework through Council first, but the Reef Guardian Action Plan is really a review of the plan that was adopted back in late 2023. We've also completed 67, which is development of a policy and action plan for consideration by Council around the mahogany glider conservation policy. So that was actually brought forward and adopted in November 2024. I'll keep going down. If we look into the organisation, our leadership and our team, probably the one to note there is that 78 Council has apprentice and traineeship roles which are currently being recruited for. And that's commenced in January 25. So if there are people out there looking for an opportunity to take on an apprenticeship or a traineeship with Council, certainly touch base now with Council or one of Council's approved providers. But if there's any other questions about the report, happy to take those questions. Otherwise, there is a recommendation there, and the recommendation is that Council, that the quarterly review of the 24-25 operational plan to 31 December 2024 be received and its contents noted.
Moved by Councillor Littlewald, seconded by Councillor Irvin. Yes, Councillor Baines.
Thank you. Question, Madam Chair. It's great to see that there's no red lights in this operational plan. It's a really good thing to see. But some comments around, probably the one that's closest to my heart at the moment is the review we're doing at the moment of the Reef Guardian Council's action plan. We're all aware that there has been a funding program, and we're segueing into more lobbying here, Madam Mayor. There has been a funding program supported by the federal government which runs out June next year. So while we're doing this review of the Reef Guardian of our action plan, rather than just reviewing the 23 and where it stops, we have an opportunity to expand it out into and exhibit to the state and the federal governments our plan and how we intend to action it. And then it gives us the ability then to, after we've given the federal government proof of concept on their value for their investment and what's come out of the value for their investment, I think we've got a great opportunity with all the councillors' support, including your own, in trying to increase or extend the program, the funding program, and we've already got. There's a motion went to last year's conference with LGAQ, and that's around the state ask and getting the state to match. So having line of sight to this sort of stuff and having the ability to not just review but think about where we can go in the next 4 years or 5 years will then give us the tools to go back to our other partners in government and say, spend the money with us, we'll give you value for money. Absolutely. You'll get bang for your buck. Yes, if you spend money with us. So. And that's not just Cassowary Coast. There's 20 reef guarding councils now. So.
Very good. Anybody else got any other comments? No? I've got a couple. If we go to initiative number 4, facilitate an increase of capability of suppliers to submit quality tenders. I've recently had several comments made that even though the suppliers are taking up the opportunity to do the extended work, that to do the session to learn how to do it properly, they're still not, they're finding they're still not being successful in their tenders. So is there room for maybe more comments or more in-depth comments that would back up how they could actually become successful?
Through the chair, just to clarify, is that those individuals and local businesses which have been successful in council's register of pre-qualified suppliers, or is that tenders for
it's a bit
capital
of both.
projects?
It's a bit of both.
So officers do and continue to provide feedback to tenderers, and as you're aware, we go out to tender with a scope and a specification, and we will typically put a weighting in there for the qualitative criteria that is to be assessed. So those individuals that are tendering for work and are unsuccessful, a member of that evaluation panel will actually sit down and talk to them about their submission, about their own scoring. Obviously, from a confidential point of view, we don't share pricing or any specifics around some of the other tenders, but certainly advise them the areas that they have potentially scored poorly in, or areas that they can work on, and those typically around local content. So we always put a weighting in there for local contractors, but even if the more they can demonstrate around the local content that they provide, so they might be a medium-sized civil construction company. If they can demonstrate that they source their materials locally as well, they can demonstrate that their staff live locally, they can demonstrate that they subcontract to other smaller local subcontractors. That's the sort of feedback that we can provide to try and lift that. Unfortunately, for some projects, methodology and prior experience is something that we will often seek to understand that the contractor has the prior experience and understands the methodology to actually deliver the works. Those sometimes are harder unless you have the actual genuine experience. But absolutely, council will continue to provide detailed feedback, and I would hope that any contractor that has asked for feedback has been provided that around their tender submissions.
Then I've got initiative number 7, maintenance review of council's top 5 public interest asset classes. That will come back to councillors before it gets finalised.
Yeah, absolutely. That one is green light because we have indicated that we'd deliver that initiative in Q3. So we're obviously just entering into Q3 now. So we would look to bring that to a council information session and then release those maintenance programs for those top 5 public interest asset classes. So as stated there, that's typically unsealed roads, the precincts, which are our town centres, boat ramps, parks, and obviously with the amount of rain we get in this region, a strong focus on our drainage as well.
Very good. Now I've got number 23, fund CCT to provide. We fund CCT to provide events calendars, promotional marketing and information centre services. And I understood quite some time ago that CCT was to set up some satellite centres across the region, and I'd like to know when this would be going to happen because I haven't seen any of it happen yet.
Through the chair, I understand that has come out of our visitor information strategy, and it was one of the initiatives there, and it is a KPI for CCT. I'll probably have to take that on notice to get some advice.
All right.
I do understand that they have set up brochure racks, and I believe there was one going into Oliveri's Deli in Innisfail. I haven't seen it myself that it's there, but
It's in place? Okay.
yeah, so that was the plan, is to rather than having and I think we talked when we brought the visitor information strategy, we had more visitor information centres in the Cassowary Coast than the entire Northern Territory. And I think when you look at Cairns as well, the intent is to engage with some of these local businesses where potentially there's an opportunity for commission through booking some of these activities, but to make sure that the places that people are visiting organically are the places they can also get the information. So we can come back at the next council meeting and provide some information, because some of our key hotels and resorts are also target areas to provide these satellite brochure
So
racks.
could we maybe get a list of those places that are going to be the satellite? You know, we need to put it out there, because people are saying, you know, we don't even have an information centre. Well, we don't. But if we've got all these satellite ones, well, we need to have a list that we can refer back to say, well, no, we don't have an actual one, but this is where you can go and get your information from.
Absolutely. I understand Mr McNamara might be putting some information together for next year around opportunities for kiosks as well. So obviously the unfortunate thing about brochures and brochure racks is you order the number of brochures you hope you need at the start of the year, and a number of those get picked up and binned. A number of those aren't used at the end of the year. So a transition or a trial with something like a kiosk, electronic kiosk, and I know not all individuals want to navigate and manage their way through an electronic kiosk, but it allows you to update data. It's a lower cost for the operators in our region, because they don't have to print and provide and distribute their brochures and flyers. So there are some work in the background to understand. I think the Shire of Exmouth in WA certainly has effectively implemented these sort of kiosks to again, you know, provide more cost-effective for the providers, satellite
And I've got
areas.
one more. Number 46, which was Innisfail CBD revitalisation. The Gateway Entry Review. Where is that at?
So that the design has been taken to 30%, and that design went out late last year for community consultation. So the community consultation has come back in. You can see there, this was the city gateway and predominantly the northern gateway, but the team has also, and apologies for some of the delays in getting this data back to you around the Illuminate Innisfail project, but the team has thought it's useful to present to council both reports. So we've now got the Illuminate Innisfail report that provides a number of opportunities for council to consider, but bringing the two together was critical. Obviously, the Northern Gateway and the significant tree that sits just where the Northern Gateway is designed in Anzac Park is obviously one of those opportunities to illuminate Innisfail, but we want to run through with council some of the costings of different types of lighting, from your bud lighting to festoon lighting to LED strip lighting. So those will come to council in February to the CISM workshop to consider before we would seek some council resolution around consideration around the feedback that's been provided through the community consultation, and council's appetite to progress that design based on that, or to not progress that design based on the feedback from 30%.
That's still not a. We still have opportunity to make decisions on whether that'll go ahead. I just asked because I really must be honest, that I haven't had a positive comment in person about that actual project. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's still, nothing has been set in stone, and we have more conversations to have about that. So
And through the ops plan, that is an initiative that we had highlighted for Q3 and Q4, so it is still coming up as a green light in our review from Q1 and Q2, but ready to come to council in February to start that consideration.
sorry, Mr. Littlemore, your turn now, councillor.
My question was answered along the way, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, okay, no worries. Is there any more questions? in relation to it? No. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. We'll move on to 4.5, Mission Beach Revitalisation, and Mr Graffam will present.
Thank you. Look, this report really considers footpath dining in the Mission Beach precinct. So, as we're all aware, Mission Beach is a unique and special place. It's surrounded by world-class natural beauty such as the Great Barrier Reef, Wet Tropics World Heritage Rainforest, and a diverse natural and cultural attractions. The CCRC has acknowledged the potential to tap into the strong existing regional tourism market by embarking on a town centre revitalisation for Mission Beach. Such revitalisation provides opportunities for visitors and residents to use and value Mission Beach's public spaces and beachfront, as well as experience activities such as fishing, boating, sea kayaking, and extreme sports, including tandem skydiving, which actually often land right at the front of our village green. There's a continuing outdoor dining supports local businesses and brings to life streets and fosters dining and shopping precincts as destinations. So as we've seen through our communities enjoying these spaces, there's a continuing need to encourage outdoor dining to support our businesses and give people another way to socialise. Cafes, restaurants, bars and cultural venues can apply for an outdoor dining permit on the footpath or on the road space outside their venue, so long as they meet the criteria outlined in Council's outdoor dining guidelines. This report considers the fees and charges for traders with approved footpath trading permits within the footprint of the Mission Beach Town Centre Revitalisation Project. So we're only in this report considering those businesses that have currently got an approved permit, and only those that sit within the footpath. So just as a reminder, the footpath that sit within the footprint of that project, the battery limits of the project run down to or up to the tavern along Porter Promenade, enter into Campbell Street to the Mermaid Coffee Shop, and then they will also run down close to the fruit market if you're looking to the south of Porter Promenade. They'll then run through the village green down to David Street and Marine Parade. So we only have 3 current approved footpath dining permits in that area. The fees and charges are broken up between an application and a permit, and then there's an additional $22 fee and charge for every table. So those businesses are Cafe Jahalia, who have an application and permit and 3 tables approved, Mission Beach Tavern, that have an application and permit and 6 tables approved, and the Blues Bar, that have an application and permit and 8 tables approved. Now, I know you might think to your last visit to the Mission Beach CBD and think there are some other tables that you've seen on what appear to be footpaths. You may be correct, but those businesses don't currently have an approved permit, haven't paid a fee and charge for that. So I guess the challenge we have is that the battery limits for the project really run from property boundary to property boundary. So where you have an approved permit to operate on council land, being the footpath or the reserve, that area will be interrupted as part of these works. And I do know that as we've seen the works move through the village green, certainly there's been an impact to the council land out the front of the Blues Bar. As we see that work continue along Porter Promenade, particularly as it moves to the north, we will see an impact there to Cafe Jahalia and to the Mission Beach Tavern. So there is a recommendation there. The recommendation is that Council thank the Mission Beach traders and community for their support throughout the delivery of the Mission Beach Town Centre Revitalisation Project. 2, that they waive the footpath dining fees and charges for the 24-25 and 25-26 financial years for the following businesses. And we've listed Cafe Jahalia, which is an application permit and 3 tables, Mission Beach Tavern, which is an application permit and 6 tables, and the Blues Bar, which is an application permit and 8 tables. Now, we are saying 24-25 and 25-26 because the project is anticipated for practical completion around December 2025. So it will move into the next financial year. And while we are still finishing those works in those public spaces, we believe that it's reasonable to waive those permit fees. I have put there is a 3rd recommendation which requests the Chief Executive Officer provide a report to Council to consider an incentive scheme to activate alfresco areas being provided through the Mission Beach Town Centre Revitalisation Project. So that's really foreshadowing that the design provides a number of areas that could be utilised as alfresco dining. We have got arbours that run out from the existing traders. They are covered, they're waterproof, they'll still permeate light through, they have fans, they have lighting. They'll be great spaces for these businesses to actually expand the number of tables that they can provide and provide, we said, an alfresco dining experience that really starts to turn this from a precinct it is to really an entertainment precinct as we move forward. But we will do some work to understand what some of those opportunities are to both provide some tenure over those public spaces moving forward and understand whether there are some opportunities to consider a further waiver of fees and charges or an adjustment to fees and charges to really activate those spaces as we finish the project and we look to drive and activate the Mission Beach Town Centre. So there is a recommendation there that's on the screen, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Pervin.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one on that, Mr. CEO. I know we did the Shop Locally program for Mission Beach, the businesses that were affected. We're not going to try and take these waivers out of that money that we got set aside for that program, are we?
No, the recommendation there is just to waive those so they would come out of the revenue that we are reporting around fees and charges. The financial portion of the report indicates the total permit and table fee and charges is less than $1,000 for those 3 properties. But while you raise it, watch this space. Certainly we will be bringing some opportunities to council that are being put together at the moment to again look to activate that precinct and drive people into that precinct through February and March, whilst we are in a bit of a downturn with relation to tourism. We know that we're a seasonal tourist town in Mission Beach, but we think we can use these initiatives to really drive locals to go in and spend and support the businesses in the town centre.
Councillor Chewy.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendation as well. But my question is, Mr. CEO, does the waiver apply to the premises or the business? If the business were to sell in that period, does the new business owner then have to reapply for the waiver? Thank you.
The permit is tied to the business, and the permits are only they're 12 months. So there's an application permit fee annually, and through that fee they need to demonstrate how they meet our footpath dining guidelines. So my understanding, if the business was to sell, that food premise license, the food license and the permit would transfer with the business. They don't sit with the property owner or the property.
Just for clarification, I do have another question, if I may. Separate to this report, and if appropriate, the council car park is now currently occupied with all sorts of pipes and necessary equipment for the revitalisation project, which is great. But we are trying to bring people into the area, and now we've taken away half the parking spaces. I know the town centre is quiet. Market days can be very busy. That car park becomes quite full, and the whole town benefits on market day because people grab coffee, they stop into shops. So I'm just wondering if there's any clarity as to how long that building works is going to be taken up, because we've lost half the car parking space in that car park. Thank you.
So just through the chair, point of clarification, we haven't lost half the car parks from... it looks like there's 18 bays there, plus the 3 larger RV or boat trailer bays that are taken up. The project's about 50%. We're about 50% through the project. The progress that was made leading into Christmas was exceptional. We need to thank our project manager and the contractor RMS for their diligence in getting us to the point we are at the moment. There's still some risk, and if you've been down there at the moment, there's some large drainage infrastructure being installed to the north and south of the village green at the moment, but we have upwards of 30 individual contractors, separate contractors, subcontractors on site at the moment. So we've got power being put underground through this project, drainage infrastructure, concrete pours, we start construction works. It is a really busy site, and we are trying to find a balance between maintaining access and pedestrian movements in the village green. If you've been down there, it is quite easy to navigate through the village green and up and down Porter Promenade itself, whereas I think you saw coming into Christmas, a lot of that material was being stored on site in the village green, which was meaning that particularly temporary fencing within the village green was much more significant than probably you'll see if you go down there at the moment. So we do acknowledge that there is an impost there. Conversely, I believe that RMS have a laydown area on Boyett Road. We are probably happier to see materials at the moment stored both from a transportation and timing point of view, but also Boyett Road as you go up the rise is not ideal. It's a fairly narrow road with with some shallow shoulders. So removing some of those movements from Boyett Road and retaining them here, but we do acknowledge there is an impact by the reduction in that car parking. There is still, that car park when it went in had 56 car bays that went in with the car park. There are still a great number of car parks, and as we have seen on those market days, and it's obviously not ideal either, but visitors to the Mission Beach area are very good at utilising that on-street parking as it runs up, certainly to the north towards Clump Point. But the disruption is necessary, and it is in the best interest of getting this project completed. And we wouldn't like to talk about where we're sitting in the program at the moment, but we are advanced in the program compared to what has been approved for the contractor. And I think if you speak to any of the traders down there or visitors to the Mission Beach area, their preference would be more pain now as far as loss of car parking to get out of their hair sooner.
Very good. Councillor Jessup?
So in this report you say there's 3 permitted cafes and bars. Is the council got any consideration to what they're going to take for other people that aren't getting permits to put their chairs and tables out? Or
so through the chair, if an individual doesn't have a permit and they've got chairs and tables sitting in that public space, or as we've seen in Mission Beach, structures, decks and other infrastructure in the public space, then those will be requested to remove that from the public space so the works can proceed. It's only where we've got an approved permit that we do need to at least in the officer's opinion and the recommendation waive those fees and charges. So like I said, there's a number of businesses down there that have chairs out in public space without it, and when we come back with a report to consider in the future, I think we identify those public spaces that are suitable in the new design for al fresco dining. You may have to look at an expression of interest process where some of those al fresco areas could be used by multiple traders, and then consider that moving forward. But unfortunately for those businesses that don't have a permit to be there, they don't have a legal stance to when that work progresses through those areas, those chairs and tables will be asked to be moved.
I suppose in a roundabout fashion, I'll get to the point that I was asking. So what legal implications, if someone was to hurt themselves on council property because of tables and chairs that aren't permitted to be there, what's council's stance on that?
Well, I mean, effectively, if someone was to place some sort of impediment that caused an issue on council property, then obviously council would be, or council's insurance company would be going back and having that conversation with the individuals that have placed that material there. Our local laws clearly state that you do need approval to be putting infrastructure or materials onto a council road reserve.
So given that they haven't got anything, should we be sending out a notice to say?
Those individuals will be getting provided notice to remove those, mainly because the ground that sits underneath any of those seats, structures, and there's a number of structures there as well, is being, like I said, from property boundary to property boundary, is being renewed as part of this project. So that process, if it's not already underway, certainly I know our project manager and engagement team are speaking regularly to the traders down there. But you're right, enforcement and resourcing of enforcement is a ongoing concern, and probably fair to say that we've been heavily focused recently on dogs and dog attacks, and unfortunately not seeing a lot of, and I guess prioritising some of that focus on dog attacks. We've got quad bikes on beaches. We've got illegal parking and camping. They're probably at the moment the least of our worries, but you do raise a good point that where we know that there is something that could be a hazard in our road, we do have a requirement to action and enforce some compliance.
So having said that, I'm happy to second and definitely give a reprieve to the 3 businesses that are actually doing the right thing and putting in a permit. Thank you.
Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Chair. I think I just wanted to reiterate Councillor Jessup's remarks there. We've got 3 people that have been doing the right thing. It's a great opportunity for us to give them a bit of respite during this difficult period, but I think the rejuvenation of this area then allows us the opportunity to give everyone step up, lower our enterprise risk, because there are risks with those sort of things happening on public land that council's responsible for, and I think it's going to be a great benefit to that area once the work is done and we've sorted out how the permitting system works or how the leasing system may work in some of the other areas. So very supportive of it.
Okay, any further comments? No. All in favour? Very good. We shall move on to 4.6. Request for leave. Over to you, Mr. Gruffin.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is quite a simple report. Councillor Nicholas Pervin has requested a leave of absence for the period from Thursday the 6th of February 2025 to February 14, 2025 and inclusive, and from the local government meeting on the 27th of February 2025. The councillor has a medical appointment on that day. There's a recommendation there, and the recommendation is that Councillor Nicholas Pervin's request for leave of absence for the period from Thursday 6th of February 25 to Friday 14th of February 25 inclusive, and from the local government meeting on the 27th of February 2025 is approved.
Moved. Seconded. Did you get that? Moved by Councillor Baines, second by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? Thank you, and I'll leave you go on to 4.7.
Thank you. Another fairly straightforward report. We've got a report here where Councillor Jeff Baines has requested a leave of absence from the period from Friday 14th of February 2025 to Monday 3rd of March 2025 inclusive. This report has a recommendation that Councillor Jeff Baines request for leave of absence for the period from Friday 14th of February 2025 to Monday 3rd of March 2025 inclusive be approved.
Who's moving? Councillor Chewy's moved it. Councillor Littlemore seconded it. And all in favour? Thank you. Sorry. So Andrew, are we going into closed?
No, you've got the Asset Management Steering Committee and then the planning matter.
Okay, and then we do that after general business, yeah. Yep. So we'll move on to 5.1, asset management, and I'll invite Mr. McAvoy to come and present. Hello, how are you? Yeah, I had to have a look too to see. I have no idea what the time is.
Morning everyone. I'm here today to speak to the report on the formation of the Asset Management Steering Committee and the associated amendment to the Asset Management Policy and the charter associated with the committee itself. Just a brief summary, the Asset Management Steering Committee has been established to take responsibility for the guidance, governance and achievement of organisation-wide asset management. The committee will monitor and provide guidance on asset management policy and practice, as well as providing oversight and accountability for deliverables. A charter has also been created for the Asset Management Steering Committee, and this has been reviewed by operational staff, as well as the executive and senior leadership team, and has also been endorsed by Council's Internal Audit Committee. Both the charter and the associated changes to the asset management policy are required to implement the Asset Management Steering Committee and enable it to function as an effective and efficient committee. The committee will meet quarterly or as requested. Oh, cheers.
You're right.
Meet quarterly as requested. It will report, or as requested, it will report to the executive leadership team, but it will also update council, the Internal Audit Committee and SLT where required. The Asset Management Steering Committee is basically a reformation of the Asset Management Working Group. So this is a group that hasn't met since November 2021. This group has ceased to function as an effective committee and was originally formed for the purpose of providing advice and making recommendations to the executive leadership team on matters relating to strategic asset management. Some of the benefits of the reformation or the formation of the Asset Management Steering Committee, some of the outcomes we hope to achieve to improve organisational support and awareness of asset management, coordinate a holistic across council approach to asset management, define and implement a list of agreed asset management priorities, also look to share information across departments within council relating to asset management, lift accountability across council for asset management, and also demonstrate an organisational commitment to asset management. There are some changes to the policy that aren't major, but some of the changes to the policy are in section 5, which is the last point there, where the Asset Management Steering Committee will provide guidance, governance and organisation-wide asset management. And also in section 6, where there's another amendment to the policy where it's to establish an Asset Management Steering Committee which will monitor and provide guidance on asset management policy and practice, as well as provide oversight and accountability for deliverables. This group, as discussed, it has existed with a similar intent previously. However, we believe that enshrining or to implement this group effectively and have proper accountability for its outcomes, it should be put through council and should be enshrined in policy. So that's why we're here today, to do this and have the recommendation that council adopt the amended asset management policy and also endorse the formation of the Asset Management Steering Committee and the associated charter. I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, I must say congratulations, because I know that this piece of work is massive, and I know it's going to take a while to get it all in place, but having this back up and running and having all of these asset management plans in place allows us as council to be able to better provide the services that we do best to our community. So thank you very much, and I will move it. Second by Councillor McLeod. Anybody else got any further comments they'd like to make? Councillor Baines.
I'm going to reiterate your comments, Madam Mayor. This is a very important work. It's work that's been developing over the years. Management of assets is everybody's responsibility, and that's something we need to be conscious of. So it's great that you've got a committee with this sort of one skill set behind it, but also that their fingers are in the different pies, so we can understand how that is. We can start informing future decisions around our assets going into the future. You mentioned earlier about whole of life costs, and these are things we have to consider. You know, some of these assets we put in place will be there for 80 years or, 50 years. So they're things we have to consider. So it's great to see it in place, and very supportive. If it hasn't been seconded, I'm happy to second.
Yeah, no.
That's already been done.
McLeod
Thank you, Councillor
seconded
McLeod.
it,
I'll third it.
You'll third it? Okay. Are there any further comments? Because it all as well as whole of life costing, it becomes maintenance and everything else that goes with an asset. So
Yeah.
not many people realise, they only see the assets on top of the ground. They don't see all the assets that we have underneath the ground, or the ones that aren't really visible. So it'll be an eye-opening piece of education for those that don't know about all those costly things that we do. So yeah.
Yes, and through the chair also, I think both internally and externally that would be the case, because one of the main points of this group is to coordinate organisation-wide asset management. So there's a lot of input from different departments in council, and at the moment asset management is something that's ongoing. However, it can be quite siloed, or maybe different practices in different departments.
Yeah.
So for us to coordinate across whole of council and get across better ideas across the board, best practice between the way we all do things, can only be an improvement.
Yeah, very good. Okay, great. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Everybody all in favour? Carried. Councillor Littlemore? Yep, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to 6.1, and we have Mr. Horton and Miss Perkins to present, please. Hello, how are we?
Morning, councillors, Mayor. Does this have to go on?
It's
Are we
on.
still on?
Yeah.
I'm here today to present a report from Planning Services. So council's in receipt of an application prepared by the Tully Horse Performance Centre for a material change of use for an undefined use. The use is a short stay self-contained RV park, and it's to support the existing lawful use right of the land. The application is proposed within the rural zone and the environmental management and conservation zone on land described as lot 582 on CWL 2720 and lot 611 on CWL 2918, situated at 360 Tully Gorge Road, Jarrah Creek. THPC, so Tully Horse Performance Centre, I'm going to call it THPC for short from now on, will currently hold camp drafting and other related events throughout the year under an existing lawful use right. They have this use right through a term lease issued by the state. The term lease has been in place for a number of years and is currently valid for another 30 years. THPC anticipates that the scale of the use will be limited to approximately 3 to 6 months of the year, but are requesting consent to allow up to 12 RVs to camp on the site for a short period of time, allowing capacity to increase during peak periods where they hold special events. The regular seasonal usage, they only anticipate 6 RVs during the season. The proposed development did not trigger referral. However, council officers met with Queensland Parks and Wildlife and did a site inspection of the site. Queensland Parks and Wildlife had no concerns with the proposed development on the site. There were no submissions received during the public notification period because it was impact accessible and subject to public notification. The proposed development will provide economic benefit to the town of Tully and the wider Cassowary Coast community. The proposed development provides the region with the opportunity to promote local goods, services, our unique culture and our remarkable natural environment. The proposed RV park will be ancillary and complementary to the site's existing lawful use and potentially increase patronage to both THPC events and the wider Cassowary Coast attractions. The proposed development has been conditioned that all waste is to be taken off the site to an appropriate waste transfer station as designated within the Cassowary Coast region, and I might also mention that it's right next to the Tully transfer station as well, so that's quite simple for them to do that. It's also been conditioned, and the RV park is not located on slopes, located on the site, and it's been conditioned to ensure adverse impacts to essential habitat and ecological values of the land have been minimised. Generally consistent with the Far North Queensland Regional Plan, Cassowary Coast and the Cassowary Coast Regional Council Planning Scheme and the term lease issued by the state, the proposed development is recommended for approval subject to reasonable and relevant conditions, and following a comprehensive assessment of the application and engagement with both the applicant, the state being the owners of the land under the Land Act, and the adjoining landowners, the application is recommended that a development permit be issued for a material change use for an undefined use, being short stay, self-contained RV park to support existing lawful use right on land described as Lot 582 on CWL 2720 and Lot 611 on CWL 2916, situated at 360 Tully Gorge Road, Jarrah Creek. Any questions? Happy to answer.
Councillor Chewy.
Thank you. I'm just reading regarding a caretaker. So is a caretaker there just when the activities are happening, or is the caretaker there all
No,
the
when the RV park is operating and they've got RVs on the site,
Should
there will
be.
be a caretaker on site.
Okay, now the dump is at the Tully Showgrounds. That's the closest for
Correct.
the toilet waste. I'm confused about the transfer station though. Is that going to be the Tully transfer station? Is that going to be, what part is not operating of the Tully transfer station? Will that impact on
So
the...
THPC currently under rates does not have a waste service, so they will be required to remove all waste from this use themselves.
Yes, I know, but
Yeah, she's meaning the waste as in garbage waste, not wastewater.
Yes.
The transfer station still takes wet and dry waste.
Okay, thank you,
that'll
yes.
be at the transfer station. The landfill is now closed.
Okay, that's where I was just a little clarity, thank you. And dogs.
No, it's conditioned in here.
It is, okay, sorry.
Through
I
the
must have
chair is
missed it.
conditioned that the dogs remain on leash at all times.
Okay,
And the
and-
caretaker will be responsible to ensure that is
Does,
happening.
okay, thank you.
So I've got so they say in there that they would be thinking that 6 RVs would more than likely be their capacity.
Oh, their seasonal, sorry, through the chair, their seasonal usage. They don't anticipate at this point in time to grow much more.
So could we
Only when they have, special events.
Yeah. So could we condition it to 6 RVs other than times of events rather than 12? I think 6 is enough for those types of, we do have a caravan park in town that we don't want to take away from also, and I think that 6 is a fair ask, given that they've stated in there that they wouldn't really anticipate that there would be any more than that other than at an event, which they've already got permission to have more if they're having an event. So would that be a reasonable ask?
Through the chair, you could move an amendment to that condition as part of the planning approval to allow 6 RVs. I can't say that it wouldn't be negotiated. When the decision notice goes out, they got 20 days to negotiate that,
Yep.
to come back to negotiate that condition.
Yeah.
The other thing I think we've got to be mindful as well as we've been trying to, through the organisation with, a lot of these groups and clubs and so forth, to try and get them financial and trying to provide benefit to that sporting club or group to be able to stand on their own 2 feet without coming to council all the time to, seek to, money, funding, all those types of things, fixed things, so forth, look, we're happy if council wishes to move that motion. They're quite within their right to do that.
So through the chair, looks like the recommendation would stay the same. If you were proposing that it would be condition 6, would change from the applicant owner caretakers to ensure that the maximum number of self-contained RVs contained in the park at any one point in time is capped at 12 vehicles, would change to 6 vehicles if you wish to amend
Sorry, Councillor Chewy.
Sorry, and so the vehicles that stay there are associated with this group?
No.
So random people?
Through the chair, they are already permitted to have people camp on site when they hold their horse sports
yes.
events under their term lease.
Yes.
So they're proposing this so they can be more financially viable in the future.
So this is just to help them with their running
Correct,
costs?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so Mr CEO, we are seeing a lot of these proposals coming through. Do we need to look at a broader scope that covers, because we've had a few at Mission Beach come through, and I know, do these people need any works done to actually, can they open up tomorrow? If this was approved, can they start this tomorrow, or do they have works to be done to fit into the criteria?
The only works are their own, through the chair, their own internal works, because they will be fencing the location of where the RV park's going to be to keep it separate from their horse sports events.
Right.
So they're the only works that are going to be required. Okay. They're self-contained RVs, so in the conditions, self-contained RV is defined. Yeah. So the caretaker will be responsible to ensure they meet that criteria for a self-contained RV. So in terms of, you know, ablution blocks or anything like that, there's no works that are required. There's no dump point.
And do we have capacity in our as local laws to ensure that they are, in fact, the caretaker is obliging to the rules?
Through the chair, we have that through our compliance
process. Your team, sorry,
if
Mr. Horton, I wasn't sure.
Unlawfully, environmental hazard, we have those criteria. I think the other component is internally, I think they're running water as part of the application as well. Additionally, council, they've still got to apply and pay for a licence through local laws for a caravan park licence under the local law, so they've still got to pay that fee on top of it annually. Our environmental health officers go out there and inspect that site every 12 months like they do with every other caravan park within our district or region, I should say. So they've still got that fee above this initial fee for this application. They've still got to pay that annually and comply with that compliance on that as a local law, because we've got set conditions in that as well.
Councillor Baines.
Well, that's where I'm curious that, I mean, the discussion is they're going to be in competition with caravan parks, but the conditioning and the permitting is exactly the same as the caravan parks. Is that right? Or is it?
In a certain way, yes, it is, because you've still got to comply with appropriate requirements around health and those provisions, which are self-contained. They've got associated dump point. You know, if we have a complaint, we'll go and inspect that. But it's up to that caretaker to ensure that it's done accordingly, like a property owner. You know, as I said before, there's a lot of different components to caravanning these days. It's not like the 70s and 80s where everyone went to a caravan park because they didn't have self-contained, they didn't have solar, they didn't have aspects, you know. We have plenty of people staying on the side of the road at Billiana, Diggers Creek, number of areas as well, you know, which they go and stay and don't provide any benefit really.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we've got these locations where they pay, they still come into town, they're still buying their groceries, they're still getting fuel, they might need a tyre change, they might have different aspects, but they also might help the club with painting of railings, upgrading, mowing the grass, whatever that requirement is around that caretaker and people that are occupying the site. So yeah, it's look, they're just looking at it as a benefit for them to get a little bit of increased funding for themselves to be able to maintain or proceed with developing the site further in the future, which I think, from what I understand, they want an uncovered area and a few other things there. So, which then brings bigger events, which then entails that economic drive behind that event into town as well. If those types of things get off the ground, you know, you're drawing people just not from Tully, you're drawing from the outer regions as well to come to that facility because it's at a certain standard. So,
and just before Councillor Pervin, if I can just finish up, so they're already under a lease agreement with council?
No, the state.
But
so through the chair, the state own the land.
State one,
yes.
So that okay. Okay, thank you.
So they, through the chair, they'd have leasehold arrangement and payment of that lease as well per year with the state on that agreement over the 30-year period. So, yeah.
Possibly you can't answer this, but in the report you talk about having 12 RVs there for an event. Every time they have an event, do they have to put an event application into council, do they? Or could they just say they got an event every day of the week? So, I mean, you could, if we look at a change it to 6, you could potentially get around it that way, if you know what I'm saying. You got an event today, you got a working bee, you know, like where...
Through the chair, under our current local laws, don't provide for them to apply for an event permit because it's not a reserve under the control and trusteeship of council. Either the local law needs to change to incorporate that, but at the current time, if it's got a use right, no, they don't have to apply to
so really, there'd be no point in changing it to 6 then, in reality, because how are you going to prove when they got an event?
There's no requirement under the local law at the current time, unless council goes through and changes that. We only control our reserves, which is our foreshores, those types of events like Marks Park, those aspects which we are trustee of. This land we aren't. The land is owned by the state and leased by the state directly through them. So under their leasehold agreement, they'll have a right there to be able to do so much. This is really a use right just to have RVs in association with the current performance centre.
Through the chair, just to clarify that comment though, that if we condition to 6 RVs, then they wouldn't be able to, unless they would have to, we could enact compliance, and it would be unreasonable to for them to assert that they're having an event daily to allow sort of unlimited use of that facility.
Councillor Littlemore.
Thank you, Chair. Given this is the second application since I've been elected, for semi-remote, if you like, so no connection to sewerage service, is there a body of work to be done around the disposal of the grey and black water? So if you turn up at a caravan park, you pay a fee and you have a dump point at the caravan park, or you use their facilities. Here, and we did cop a little bit of flack from this around the Cardboard sewage treatment plant.
Yes.
Just wondering if that's perhaps in line with some of the other policy work that we might develop.
I think through the chair, it may be best dealt with through a fee and charge. So we currently have fees and charges for pedestals or additional pedestals, and absolutely right. If this was to have 12 individuals staying there for a maximum of 7 days in that 21-day period, then they would obviously be most likely to use council's Tully dump point. So, yeah, potentially a fee and charge for this type of use that covered some sort of pedestal charge. We'd have to come back and have a think about what the impact would be on our network and our system.
No problem. Anybody else have any more questions? Councillor Jessup.
Not a question so much, just an observation. I think that we need to maybe workshop this, put some guidelines in place and really be across it before the next one lands on our doorstep.
Yes, I have asked for that to happen, so it's in the progress. But here we are. We've got another one before us today. So I don't know. Do I have any support on reducing the number from 12 to 6 on the grounds that no? I mean, if there's no support, there's no point me going through all of that. But
can I just ask, and I don't know if you can answer, the number of 12, is that what they're saying that is going to be enough for them to be able to do any works, or is 6 not enough?
Through the chair, it's a number that they considered with their location, their area that they can control. You know, they want a fancy area, so they've got to pay for that, to ensure that this area, and they want to manage it properly. So the caretaker and the Horse Performance Centre want to have enough area, but they've picked 12 as what they can manage and what they want to look after. They at one stage, I think we had, was it 30? We had 30. After negotiation, discussion around that, what do you actually need and what is reasonable for you guys to control on the ground, and operate. So the figure was 12 that they'll fence, which is a considerable amount of work when you space that out both sides. Considering in between each of these sites, you should have 3 metre separation distance in between them, for fire safety purposes. Usually that's done with a bit of landscaping in between it. On a lot of caravan parks, you see. So, yeah. I don't think 6 will be fine.
The fact that they've reduced it, but have the discussions.
so I think when we come to our discussions, we must keep in mind about what is a caravan park, because there are people out there paying for caravan park licences, and yet we're going and doing this as not a caravan park licence. So that's just something that we need to be mindful of in the future. Is the 12 inclusive of the caretaker?
Yes, through the chair, yes.
Yes.
So it will have a caravan park licence under the local law
it will?
as well. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, as raised by yourself, Madam Mayor, in the future when we do our planning scheme, we really need to look at that policy direction around what we do there and how that looks. Because some councils have accepted development up to 10 sites on rural properties. So, and around the areas exploring those types of options, which mean it doesn't come to council. It
Yeah.
goes straight if they meet the criteria.
Then it's done.
So what we need to do as a council is really understand that and really understand what do we want from our rural areas in trying to allow them to, I suppose, have their current cropping and so forth. But what is that offset on other uses that complement them staying in business as well? Because not every bit of land in our area is just purpose for cane, bananas, pawpaws, those types of things.
Yep.
We got a lot of natural assets and we got a lot of land that's undulating, which sometimes doesn't allow for those types of things. However, they're paying,
Extraordinary amounts of money, yeah, that's
for
right.
it. So you got to be able to be mindful of what can those properties do to benefit.
Look, and we want to encourage them to think outside the square and become, what do you call it, when you've got more than one thing going on?
It's a real balance, Madam Mayor. It's just that balance of what it is.
Diversifying. Thank you, Councillor Littlemore.
And a balance, at the moment we allow 3 cabins as a bed and breakfast. Is 3 enough? Is 5 more beneficial to that type of use?
Yeah,
sure. Those are the discussions that we'll have at that stage, council. Really working out where we want to be as a council and what we want is accepted, and an application being
Okay,
forward.
so we'll go back to the 12. Yes, Councillor Jessup?
Yes, I'm happy to support this at 12. I think, though, one of the last times that we did a smaller version, we actually did a site tour we actually did a site tour and it sort of allayed a lot of speculation on our behalf because we could see what was going on as well. I don't know if anyone's interested in doing that.
Last time though, Chair, there were objections.
That's correct.
There were no objections, was there?
Okay, so can we go back to the recommendation?
Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
You're going to move the recommendation? Sure. Moved. Seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks,
Sorry, it was a good
Thanks for the
discussion, though. Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Greatly appreciate
A lot to think about in the future.
Always.
Thank you.
Great job, Ms Perkins.
Thank you.
Oh, we move on to the favourite here, general business. Who seconded? Oh, Nick. Councillor Chewy.
Thank you. Just to keep Councillor Pervin on record. Just regarding recycling, Mr CEO, we know that we are stepping up to it and it's very exciting. Just concerning cans and bottles, we know that they are a great source of income for non-for-profit groups, schools, P&C, sporting organisations. So we obviously are still encouraging those people that go to Containers for Change to continue to do so for fundraising and for lining their own pockets. But could you just provide clarity as if it becomes more convenient for people to put their cans and bottles in their recycling bin and they travel then to cans? What happens to those funds that those cans and bottles create? Thank you.
Look, through the chair, thanks for the question. I think the intent of implementing recycling on the Cassowary coast wasn't about reducing the benefit that some local clubs and sporting clubs get from the Containers for Change, and certainly we would be encouraging individuals to there is a refund there of 10 cents on every container that you use. I would be encouraging sporting clubs or individuals to look at opportunities to use the Containers for Change and to take advantage of the refund that you do get if you do that. Where recyclables or eligible product were put into a receptacle into your bin, once there's a yellow lid on it, you would wheel it out onto the front verge, and the contents of that bin effectively become council's problem, or as you start to look at it now, the commodity that you put in that bin, being the aluminium from those cans, becomes council's commodity. So that would be picked up by JJ Richards and, as you've suggested, taken up to the material recycling facility out of Cairns. The Cairns material recycling facility has a fee and charge of about $161 per tonne that goes into that facility. So council and ratepayers through their curbside fee and charge are actually paying to, one, collect and lift the bin, two, to transport the bin, and three, to have that material sorted. So unfortunately, as is often the case, to get a better outcome from a recycling, reuse, waste diversion point of view, typically comes at an increased cost. The benefit of those materials, or that commodity that's going into the bins, let's call them cans and bottles, is that now they are separated and not put into landfill. Historically, in that green lid bin, they've been put into landfill. Where we can separate, we can actually generate some revenue from that commodity. So we don't know what that looks like yet, but anticipate it could be somewhere in the vicinity of $150,000 to $170,000 per year. So I guess, like I said, encourage people, take advantage where you can. If there's a sporting club that you can support, take advantage of that. If not, have the confidence that if you're comfortable putting them into your receptacle now, that they will be separated, they won't go into landfill, and that the revenue that council generates from that commodity as it's sorted in cans will come back to offset some of those costs associated with that recycling program.
Happy with that? Very good. Because there are a lot of myths about our bins. I did a little video the other day. Yeah, so council, sorry.
Oh, sorry. And as I was going to say, it's really important that people still continue to support their
Absolutely.
organisations. But if for some people it is just convenient, and now knowing that they can put them in their own bin at home, but knowing that it goes to the right place, I think that is
rather
important.
than into landfill.
Landfill,
That's
absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Through the Chair, just to add to that, the risk is, and we're thankful for the state government funding for our Let's Get It Sorted program at the moment, but education is key. Conversely, if we have an area where there is significant contamination, let's say the contamination is greater than 20% of the material that's collected, that material, when it's dumped onto the floor of the material recycling facility, if deemed to be contaminated, then needs to be picked up and trucked from Cairns to Mareeba to the Ramonda site up at Springmount, and then we'll not only be paying the handling fee in Cairns, the transport fee up, we'll also be paying for the disposal fee at Ramonda. So I would encourage people to really take advantage of the Let's Get It Sorted program and education that we're running out. There will be materials coming out to households. There will be a significant amount of education through schools and other avenues, but yeah, please take advantage and take notice of the Let's Get It Sorted campaign.
That's right. And the education, there will be, in the education packs, there will be very distinct lists of what should go in the recycling bin. However, if you don't want to recycle, I suggest you do not put it in the yellow bin, because that will incur costs down the track. Councillor Littlemore.
Thank you, Chair. Talking about waste of a different description. The councillors will be aware, because we all attended, but the public that watch the broadcast may not necessarily be aware that the Cardwell Sewage Treatment Plant was officially opened by yourself and state and federal dignitaries. So in a collaborative effort, we achieved something absolutely fantastic. I must say that I was impressed by the facility that we've got down there. Not that you tend to visit too many sewage treatment plants, but the typical old tank style with a big stirrer on top and settlement ponds is a thing of the past. I think that we don't actually have a thing of beauty, but we certainly have a thing that will last us a long time. And I believe it was opened on time and on budget. Is that correct, Mr. CEO?
Yes.
I think through the chair, there are a couple of delays with the project that were, I think our tank got lost somewhere in the Panama Canal or somewhere along those lines. But other than that, yes, mostly, certainly on budget and mostly on time, which with those things that were within our control.
So, Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate all those involved, the senior staff, right through to those in the project management sphere, and of course the contractor. But most of all, we all know we could not have done it without the help of the feds and the state government and council's continued push, along with the local member, to get the job done. So congratulations all.
Yeah, thanks. Well done. Well said. I concur with everything that you said. and yeah, a lot of effort went into that from the team at Cassowary Coast. So I think that really needs to be noted. Like, that project would not have gone where it went without all of the work, and it hasn't just started since we got the funding. This has been an ongoing project for, how long would you say, Mr. Goodman? Sorry, but whilst it's lovely, yeah, and we do thank the state and federal governments, we do need to commend our own staff in-house and for the milestone that they've reached, and it's huge.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. I'm in the process of I think it's on. I'm in the process of moving office at the moment, and came across a document that we put together in 2018 that was considering options for future options for either a specific treatment plant for Port Hinchinbrook or a treatment plant that would cover all of Port Hinchinbrook and all of Cardwell. So yeah, we were doing that work back that long ago. I actually called Mr. Jeffrey Smart, who was the manager of water this week, who was heavily involved in those sort of preliminary discussions, to thank him for the work that he did early on in the project. He's very pleased to hear that. Just recently retired. So yes, it's a project that's been in development for a very significant period of time.
Well, thank you again. And on that note, yes, we will be doing some more work with the representative down there, Mr. Demetto, on moving forward with the rest of what may or may not happen at Port Hinchinbrook. So I look forward to those conversations. Thank you, Mr. Littlemore. Has anybody else got any general business? Councillor McLeod?
Through the chair, if anybody is unaware, we have got our Australian citizenships this afternoon. It has been mentioned, but we've also got our Australia Day Awards happening tonight at the Shire Hall, and I would like to wish all of those who were nominated the best of luck, and it'll be interesting who comes away with the big awards. So good luck to everybody, and we'll see everybody tonight.
Look forward to it. Very good. Councillor Baines?
Yep, great work tonight again. Congratulations to all the nominees for the Australia Day Awards. And don't forget the pool parties are on Australia Day within Cassowary Coast. So everyone get along. They've got sausage sizzles, there's entertainment. So get along to the pool parties and have a wonderful Australia Day. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we shall move on to... the meeting will now be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J13G in relation to commercial matters. Can we have a mover? Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? Thank you. Can we have somebody move that we move out of? Councillor McLeod's moved it, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Thank you. I'll now put over to Ms Strabesky to present.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is confidential in accordance with Section 254J(3) of the Local Government Regulation 2012, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business related to the following: E. Legal advice obtained by the local government or legal proceedings involving the local government, including, for example, legal proceedings that may be taken by or against the local government. This report is presented for council information regarding the status of the rates and charges and sundry debtors to 31 December 2024, or as otherwise stated. An update regarding legal action is also provided. For further information, this includes current outstanding rates to 31 December 24 sits at 8.55%, with a comparative to 31 December 23 of 7.64%. The amount currently outstanding equates to 1,209 rate files, totalling 7,574,000. Council has 431 current files with council debt collection agencies, totalling about 1.3 million. 68 payment arrangements with a combined total of 125,770. There are 106 current sundry debtor files with debit balances totalling about 1.2 million and 7 active sundry debtor files with council debt collection agencies totalling $16,334. The recommendation is that council report be received and noted.
Just a quick one. So that 8.55 is up from 7.64. Is that, could that be inflation from that particular large debtor carrying over all the time? Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's through the chair, obviously, with an interest rate of 12.35%. That does have an impact on that, and it's a significant amount of
well, I just thought I'd point that out because it's not that we've got more files, it's just that compounding interest is making that percentage rate rise. Okay, no worries. Thank you for that.
Happy to move.
Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? Thank you very much. That brings us to the close of our meeting at 12:17. Thank you for joining us for our meeting. See you next time. Bye.